I've been practicing. What's that? Hi. Welcome to the Budget Committee meeting. I have been asked to remind everyone to use their mics because that was a little bit hard to hear sometimes for folks at the other end. So there's your reminder. For the land recognition, Peggy Obersteller is going to give that today. I think I saw.
Yeah, I see her.
Okay.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes,
You can? Okay,
yes, Maggie, we can hear you.
okay. I'd like to invite us to start this meeting with the acknowledgement that the land on which Lane Community College is built is the traditional land of the Kalapuya people. I ask you to join me in acknowledging Indigenous communities, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. We also acknowledge that our institutions were founded upon genocide, erasures, and exclusions of many Indigenous peoples, including those on whose land our institutions are located. Our institutions must acknowledge and make visible the ongoing effects of systemic oppression and intergenerational trauma that affects all of us. This acknowledgement demonstrates a commitment to beginning the process of working to dismantle the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism and begin a process of restorative justice.
Thank you. Celia, can we do the roll call now?
Yes, Kevin Alltucker,
Here.
Shaylin Bays, Siobhan Cancel,
Here.
Sue Kutsu George,
Here.
Denise Diamond,
Here.
Larissa Ennis,
Here.
Mike Eister,
Here.
Austin Volnaghi,
Here.
Lisa Fragala,
Here.
Will Gray,
Here.
Charles Kimball,
Here.
Zach Mulholland,
Here.
Steve Mattel,
Here.
Amber Patterson, here, Ron Preisler.
Here.
Okay, next item is approval of the agenda and the May 1st meeting minutes. I would like to use my power as chair to just say, all in favor, say aye, rather than doing a roll call. Sorry, a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, Steve, motion, Mike seconded. Okay, so all in favor of approving the agenda and the minutes? Aye.
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 Any opposed? None opposed. Okay, they're approved. Okay. Next item is public comment. Do we have anyone signed up, Celia?
Yes. We have Gary Mort, who is on Zoom, followed by Brooke Taylor and Adrian Mitchell, who are in person.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you all for being here. When I was a board member, this was not my favorite time of year. Speaking tonight on behalf of Adrian Mitchell and myself as co-chairs of the Budget Development Subcommittee. Our message does not seek to represent the BDS. Rather, it's a time-sensitive matter regarding information posted on board docs for this meeting about which we just became aware. We're sharing our perspective on the budget development process this year and addressing the information posted for tonight's meeting. Ongoing turnover and or vacant positions in both budget and finance this year and last year have understandably impacted our process. The process this year was much smoother than last year. In particular, we've been delighted to work with Budget Manager Jonathan Campbell and Interim VPFO John Nisbet. We look forward to working with Kara Flath, who recently joined LCC as our new VPFO. Despite these improvements, the BDS did not receive necessary requested data until the Monday evening immediately before our Wednesday BDS and College Council meetings when tuition was considered for a vote. Likewise, BDS did not receive all requested pertinent data until the morning of the same Wednesday that BDS and College Council voted on the budget balancing framework. This contributed to very short decision-making timelines at both BDS and College Council. We believe these dramatically reduced timelines were directly attributable to unstable staffing and vacant positions. As BDS co-chairs, we also support increased student input and transparency around tuition. The administration is responsible for holding an annual tuition forum with students. While the student forum was on the administration's budget calendar, we're not aware of it occurring. To address these concerns, we are committed to working with the Budget Development Subcommittee to present a more realistic budget development calendar for next year that ensures more time and transparency and which is conducive to informed, thoughtful decision-making. In addition, we will continue to strongly advocate for full stable staffing levels in budget and finance and the provision of data in a timely manner. Despite the challenges, we were happy to have been able to send forward a balanced budget framework that was approved at both BDS and College Council in a timely fashion. We are surprised to see in the 5/15 financial status update posted on board docs for your meeting this evening, inclusion of a recommendation for $1 million reduction in personnel costs, among other changes. This information has not been provided to BDS, which continues to hold regular meetings this term, nor has it been shared with the campus community at large. We have many questions. For instance, do these recommended personnel reductions impact vacant positions, existing personnel, cuts to programs, and/or services to students? We look forward to learning more about the new recommendations to the budget that was presented to you on May 1st. And again, thank you for your time this evening.
Can I go now? Okay. Hello. Is that mic working?
Mhm.
Okay. My name is Brooke Taylor. I'm a full-time chemistry instructor, and I also have the great honor of being the Faculty Professional Development FPD Coordinator. The information request included for this meeting contained 2 questions about the FPD budget, and the administration response indicated an estimate, of $600,000 in carryover based on historical trends. The past 4 years, the carryover for FPD has been $135,000, $317,000, $419,000, and $496,000. FPD estimates our carryover for next year will be $336,000, not $600,000. With travel restrictions, significantly fewer faculty applied for sabbaticals and professional development funds, resulting in greater carryover the past 2 fiscal years. The vast majority of annual expenses for the current FPD budget have not yet been paid or transferred. Those expenses include the transfer of funds for salary and benefits for part-time faculty who teach classes for full-time faculty while they are on sabbatical, assigned release to coordinate FPD programs, myself included, the FPD events coordinator and the faculty connections coordinator, or for faculty who were partially retrenched. The estimated costs are $307,000 for 10 sabbaticals, $87,000 for a coordinator release, and $51,000 for retrenchment. Following regular FPD practices, departments will be reimbursed for these costs at the end of before the end of the academic year and before next fiscal year. The funds are transferred from FPD to the departments for the part-time faculty backfill. Additionally, stipends need to be paid for faculty who have participated in Faculty Connections, which is our new faculty mentoring program. This will be approximately $10,000, and to faculty who have participated in faculty inquiry groups, also known as FIGs. This will be approximately $12,000. FPD has also awarded $43,000 for professional activities that have not yet been reimbursed. Some of these expenses will not be submitted until next fiscal year and then will be paid from the carryover. Given the estimated carryover and the reduced allocation because of decreased total full-time faculty salaries, the estimated total budget for next fiscal year will be approximately $802,000, not over $1 million, as mentioned in the administration response to the information request. FPD has already awarded 8 terms of sabbatical to full-time faculty for next fiscal year at an estimated cost of $247,000. Faculty Professional Development offers a variety of programs, and we take great care to use our allocated funds thoughtfully to help faculty meet their professional development needs. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, members of the board and budget committee and President Bulger. I have a very brief statement. I just wanted to share a little bit of clarification regarding a presentation that you received at your May 1st meeting. And so one of the pieces that was presented to you on May 1st was that faculty would be receiving a 6% COLA for next year. However, the COLA for faculty for next year is 3.09%. So I just wanted to clarify that. It seems like there may have been a typo in the presentation, and it's 3.09, not 6%. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Bolger?
Yes, thank you, Chair, Council George. I'd like to welcome Kara Flath, our Vice President of Finance and Operations, to come to the podium and to lead the presentation this evening.
We do have a presentation. Do you mind pulling that up? He's got it. Hi, great. So after our last, I'll stay close to the podium, sorry. I'm a little shorter than others. After the last budget committee, we did go back, look at all the comments, feedback, concern. Hopefully everybody had a chance to finish reading through the fabulous budget document. Everybody did a great job on it. And one thing as a finance person, I always focus on, which is also what was brought up in the committee, is financial stability and sustainability, viability, long-term. And one of the comments was, what is the newest updates and how does that affect the budget that comes into it? So that's certainly one of the focuses we looked at. It's also part of the third quarter financial update that you'll see later. So we went back, we looked at that. The next slide. So we'll go over fiscal year 24 year-end projections, how that looks with a 3-year outlook, the suggested amendments to the budget. You probably have a sheet in front of you that will summarize the things that we'll recommend. And then risk mitigation strategies, which are also outside of the budget that we submitted to you. I just want you to keep that in mind. And one of the comments was how the reserve for revenue shortfall, it went from 4 million to 350,000, how that was developed and why that was developed. So we do want to have a quick discussion about that because I think it is important. And then if we get that far, the motions to approve and next steps.
Kara, before you move on, I just wanted, we did not skip over the first agenda item under 3A. We certainly assume that the Budget Committee has taken a look at all of those responses to information requests. And so we don't have an intention to go over those. Thank you, Kara.
Yeah, sorry, that's fair. Hopefully everybody was able to see all the responses and information. Just looking for. So the fiscal year 24 current outlook with third quarter data and the 3-year outlook, we are looking at a lower ending fund balance than we anticipated in the original budget that we sent to you. So keeping on track with, there's 2 focuses on that. One, the board policy says we have a 10% ending fund balance. That's one of the focuses. We definitely want to keep true to what board policy says. And then looking at potential areas that we need to keep in mind, especially as it looks at the 3-year outlook. Let me say a couple things, and I always go off on this soapbox, but this is a 3-year outlook based on what today looks like. There are decisions that are made come 26, 27, and future out years. As finance people in governmental accounting, you know, we can't spend more than what we bring in revenue. That would be illegal, erroneous, all sorts of big words, and we wouldn't do that. So this just gives us the forecast of if everything looks the same as it does today and decisions don't change factors, here's how you're going to look. So it's an important thing to look at and definitely a viable thing, but don't let that completely derail the future outlook. But what we do need to focus on for sure is 25, 26, and the 25, if we're staying on track with what we're doing right now and what we're projecting to do, we won't meet that 10% ending fund balance. So we have to strategize. And part of that was because the ending fund balance decreased by 650,000, give or take, as a projection. That will still ebb and flow a little bit. We still have a quarter of a year left. A lot of things can happen. So keep that in mind. So a couple of highlights just to keep in mind, the tuition targets are still forecasted to be met. Our enrollment is going up. We're still in a very positive outlook in that way. And at the same time, the part-time positions, we do have more of those on staff because of that. We have had to increase spending on outside services for contracts, especially, you know, some of the finance areas. We brought in extra people, hence I'm here now. And classified bargaining agreement that was settled, that did cost. So we have to include that in that. And that's part of what adjusted our projected ending fund balance for this month. Materials and expenses are up, but still maintaining under budget. So it's nothing too concerning. And then again, discussion that previously has been with the board, the non-general fund program 9 support, program not, the general fund supports to program 9. Yes.
Just a quick clarification. I don't expect you to go into detail here, but on the total revenue projections in the out years, what are you doing to project state, contributions to the
I think we're
TLCC?
doing 1%. Yeah. Bring this.
So we have a scenario modeling system, and a lot of it is getting all the brains in the room with 6 or 7 people kind of talking through what that means. At one point in time, I had 7 people in my little office over there, scenario modeling. So this forecast's outlook has a 1% state funding assumption built into it. So it could go anywhere between 1 to 4, but we know some of the political headwinds that we have coming up. We've been given 9 and 13% over the last 2 bienniums. We don't have any indication that that will sustain. So we want to be conservative in how we forecast that. So this is what it looks like with 1%. It's a roll of the dice where it could actually land 2 years from now.
Thank you.
Austin?
Yeah, and just really briefly for the budget committee. Yes, we do have that policy in regards to the 10%, but we also, if we fall below that, also have a ability to develop a plan to get above that over, I believe it's a 3-year time period. And yeah, so just FYI that is something to keep in mind with the revenue shortfall. Also, in regards to state funding, yeah, we're as a representative of OCCA, we're going to definitely push for as high of state budget and funding as possible, and call your legislators because higher education needs to be funded.
Charlie?
For those of us who aren't as necessarily familiar with governmental accounting, I'll profess I'm not. But how do we, if we can't spend more than we take in, how do we take the ending fund balance from projected 8 million down to minus 5.5 million? Is that, how do we do that?
Oh, and you're using fiscal year 26 as an example. We start with 8 million and end it.
Right.
And this forecast is saying we get 1% more in state revenues, but we still have an increased cost for everything that we do today. And it's the decisions that we make from 25 to 26 that we may have to do to figure out how to do some cost savings, right? So it's a combination of things. And it's knowing, the most important thing is knowing that unless we make decision points or figure out how to increase revenue, we do have to make decisions to slowly reduce that over. And although 5 million is a pretty big number, 5 million over 100 million is it's not a drop in the bucket, but percentage wise, it's not a huge percentage. So it's a doable figure.
It's a big number. I guess, what were the fund balances like in prior years? Has this been a downward trend or has this been static?
Yeah, it has been a downward trend over time.
Okay.
Our ending fund balance has stabilized over the last year or two, but it has been on a downward trend over the last 10, 12 years.
Thank you.
Lisa?
Yeah, so you mentioned that the revenue in the last couple years was between 13 to 15% increase at the state. But you made it sound like that was an abnormal increase, and I'm wondering why. And I'd like to know, what were the previous increases that might reflect typical years? Because my understanding is my perception is that 1% is quite a low projection.
Sure. Yeah. So 2 bienniums ago, I believe it was 9%. I can get you the exact numbers after this meeting. And then last biennium was a 12%, I believe. I could be wrong about the ballpark figures, but that's higher than it has been on average. And I think we would have to get the exact numbers to you in an information request.
Okay, Celia, could we include that in the information request, please?
I wonder if we could also, Brett, if you could maybe give a little bit of context around the state biennial budgets and what those, from your perspective. Brett Roulette is our Executive Director of External Affairs, and he may be able to shed some light on this as well.
Thank you. The last 2 biennium, we've actually received a higher than
the normal increase to our budget. And a lot of that was aided by two things: federal pandemic assistance that was given to the states, as well as revenue that has been historically off the charts. I mean, many of you probably received a historic kicker this year, and that is in part to, well, many factors, but all of the predictions, the forecast models kind of have that coming to an end and getting back to a more realistic budget scenario. And so that combined with the fact that the governor has indicated that we are not a priority of hers in her next budget, she has directed all state agencies that basically do not deal with the issues of housing or homelessness to create state budget requests that do not exceed more than 1% above current service level. And what you'll probably hear many times moving forward is that we have two current service level amounts. We have what's considered the state current service level, and that's when the state's Department of Administrative Services looks at community colleges. It decides what it believes we need to maintain current service level. In past years, they would look at employees and consider employees to be the same as a ream of copy paper. And so when they would just use a standard inflationary adjustment for those costs, and they weren't realistic because we watched PERS costs and other expenses rise at rates significantly higher than that. And so we have what we consider to be our current service level, which is higher than the state current service level. So when the governor is directing the state agency, the Higher Ed Coordinating Commission, to prepare a budget that is no more than 1% above current service level, to us, that's a cut budget. And so that's what we're preparing for. Now, often when we start the legislative process, the governor's budget may be, we're often hoping is the floor. And then we have 5 to 6 months to work and lobby the legislature and hopefully end in a better spot. But we're expecting to start in a not very good position. And then knowing that we're not a priority of the governor's throughout the whole process, it's going to make a lot of our work lobbying legislators more difficult because we need to get our budget through the governor. So that's kind of where we're at. And I'll be happy to work with Celia to prepare the increases we've gotten over the last 5 biennia so that you can kind of see what's normal before the COVID budgets.
Yes.
I guess I just had a follow-up question on the external relations piece, because it seems like there's a lot of strategic investments in housing production here. So the workers that are actually going to be going out and building the houses, has that been factored into any approach, or can that alter the dynamics in terms of what the state funding looks like?
We are, we're very familiar with community college graduates drive the state economy. And oftentimes our message is a lot more effective and taken more seriously when the state's in a crisis situation and the economy's fallen out from under us. And that's when they turn to us. Many folks are aware of exactly what you just said. Our graduates are the ones that are going to help the housing situation and build new homes. But at the moment, the priorities are not behind our students.
Steve?
Just one more follow-up on just trying to get clear on the 1% number. So I think what I heard said is that, 2 biennials ago, there was a 9% increase against whatever the starting point was, I suppose. And then a 12%-ish, give or take, then the most recent biennium above that 9. And so what you're projecting is 1% more than whatever the most recent budget that we received was. Is that I'm just trying to get clear here.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay, so it's 1% above an historic high investment that was made just recently.
That's correct. So what we received in this biennium, increase it by 1%. That's what we included in this forecast model. And if I could just add, when our the state agency that our distribution formula goes through for the Community College Support Fund, when they're given the direction from the governor to create a budget that's no more than 1% above current service level, they could choose that full 1% to be the Oregon Opportunity Grant Program. So they could keep us flat funded, the community colleges. They could decide to
keep the universities flat funded and put all of the agency increase into an aid program like the Oregon Opportunity Grant Program. Unfortunately, the HECS made decisions over the past year to divert most of all new money that goes into that program to students attending four-year institutions.
So a question, 1% above current service level, is that 1% above the cost, the current cost of the current service level, or 1% above the projected cost of the current service level next year?
It would be the DAS calculated current service level for the next biennium.
So it would include some increase, and then
Correct.
1%
Very,
on top.
very
of that.
small increase.
Okay. Any other questions?
We get to the next slide and then I'll have a couple questions and I have to leave for a short while for a business presentation for my work, unfortunately.
Okay, next slide. Yep. So the adjustments you see from what we originally gave you 2 weeks ago to today, here are is a recap of the changes. The ending fund balance, like I said, is about 650,000 less what we projected. We are proposing 3 factors in there. The first one is personnel expenditure reduction. That isn't eliminating any existing staff or any existing positions, but there are some investments in repurposing. There was 1.6 million that Jonathan's talked about in positions that are being brought back online. It's delaying bringing those back online. So that's the most part of that. And if there was, I think, 6 new positions also included in there, so it's delaying some of those, and it's not all of them. It's just trying to reach that target. The second reduction is in materials and supplies, 250,000. There was some other larger increases added in areas. This isn't cutting the 3% increase that everybody's achieved. This is things that were beyond that. So not eliminating that base 3%. At the same time, because the only revenue source that we are truly trying to mitigate is that ending fund balance change. We're proposing the difference between all these be put in the contingency, and the offsetting factor is this is trying to keep that 10% ending fund balance. Does that make sense? Okay.
Zach, you had some questions at this slide?
Yeah, can you, I guess, maybe just repeat what you said with regarding to the FY25 personnel expenditure reductions? Does that include any layoffs, or is that entirely delays in hiring staff?
It's entirely delays, no laying off staff.
Okay, and then do we know where, which departments would, is this a smaller increase to the materials and services budget, or is this a cut to particular departments?
It's not a cut. So the materials and supplies budget was still increased 3%, and this is additions beyond the additional 3% that were added in some of the areas that we have pulled back. And they were anticipated areas. So they weren't necessarily areas that they were like, we really need this here. They were areas we were anticipating they might need. So they still all get their 3% minimum increase.
And I think my only other question was with regards to our previous discussion of the bond prioritization. When is that going to come back? We're not approving anything that we hear that we had not previously approved in that discussion. Is that correct?
That is correct. And we're discussing what the next strategy session is to bring to you all to make that decision. But we only are moving forward with the ones that you guys voted on. Approved.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to go to Denise because she hasn't had a chance yet, and then Lisa had another question.
Thank you. I'm wondering where previously I could be reminded that we had any information about reducing personnel expenditures, especially by this amount.
Repeat that again. I'm trying to follow. Are you asking? Ask your question again. I'm sorry. I'm not following it.
Yes, it seems to me that this is the first time we're hearing about $1 million in personnel expenditure reduction. But if you have previous time that this has come up, I would be interested in hearing that. Because I think we need an identification of particulars here. I hear you saying that it's vacant positions that are not going to be filled. However, the particulars of the areas of study, if they're all in that category, if they're all subject disciplines, or if it also includes not filling counseling positions or things like that, I think we need the particulars there.
Perhaps that is something for the board to actually look at if the board has questions about it, the Board of Education. But the Budget Committee really is the charge of the Budget Committee is slightly different. So we can certainly take that question. We appreciate that.
Lisa?
Yeah, so I just needed a clarification. When you say we can take that
As a question,
as an information.
as an information request.
Okay, all right,
Mhm.
that's what I thought you meant. So I wanted clarification also on the vacant positions that would not be filled. I'd like to state that I'm also surprised to have these changes at this late in the process. And also hearing that the Budget Development Subcommittee was not involved in some of this decision-making. And so I'd like to have more information about what those vacant positions are. For example, are they the strategic new positions to help with critical needs across the college that were listed in the information request that we got? Are those some of the positions that are included in these positions?
And we haven't nailed down it. We had some preliminary discussion on, there's a lot of positions, like, let me just use the finance department as an example. We have 4 or 5 positions that we could delay as they become vacant. What we have to do is have a discussion as each of those positions come up, because here's twofold, and here's what I always caution people is right now, we still have another quarter of the year to get through before we know for certain what our ending fund balance is going to be. And when we throw that 423,000 into a contingency, the hope is maybe we'll still make that up and maybe that number gets to be less. But if we're trying to keep the balanced budget and still maintain the board policy of the 10%, we have to bring you this a fiscally viable, sustainable, balanced budget. So this is the area where we're saying when 80% of your expenditures come in personnel costs, we
Yeah, I
couldn't make up
understand
$1 million in materials and supplies without drastically reducing things. So that's the only area we have available. So those decisions haven't been firmed up because we're still really early in finishing out the fiscal year. So I also caution about having too specific a conversations because there's a lot of changes that might come in the next 3 months.
So basically you're answering the question by saying there has been no decision made about which positions are going to be held vacant. Is that correct?
We haven't firmed yet.
Okay, so the positions that I just asked about in the information request, are these positions going to be filled or not going to be filled?
The hope is with this particular pot is to delay
So
how.
these positions are also being delayed. I'm talking about the
Which ones?
Director of Communications,
Oh,
the Director of Institutional Research and Effectiveness, Post-Award Grants and Contracts Administrator, Dean of Mathematics, and 2 additional student advisors. Then this was in response to Siobhan Consul's information request.
Okay, thank you for that. I wonder if the details, we can take that as a question and put it into the responses to information requests for the next time.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I did have a few more. I
Okay,
was
sure.
curious about these positions and I would like to know specifically how many vacant positions are in the budget. This is something that's always really perplexed me, that we have this budget that has so many vacant positions. And I'd like to know how many there are. What is the numerical or monetary significance of that in the budget overall? And also an explanation of the swirl might be helpful to the Budget Committee, as well as what were the swirl savings in the last, 5 budget years in order for us to understand what might be represented by swirl savings in the future budget. So for some context around what we're talking about around these vacant positions, I think would be really helpful.
Thank you for that. Swirl to the budget committee, and particularly the new budget committee members. Swirl is an internal term. And so we will, in fact, I think we're toying with a different term right now. What is that term?
I'm trying to reprogram everyone that it's vacancy savings. because
Yes,
that's pretty
vacancy
common
savings.
for- I didn't know swirl was a magical thing that happened or what it was. So, yeah.
So we like this vacancy savings term, and so we're going to start to
Okay,
all
I'll
try to
start
get used to
using
that.
I like it.
I wonder though, because the question keeps coming up about why the change, the $1 million change. And I wonder if we could really explain that one more time, just so that we're all clear on that.
Yeah, if you don't mind going back to maybe the third slide. This particular slide really captures one of the goals of what we're doing. I see Jonathan over here in he's got really smart stuff. The ending fund balance was the first strategy. And the second one is if we're landing below our 10% ending fund balance, how do we mitigate those two together?
Yes.
I'm looking for does that make sense? The two?
You're asking me specifically?
I'm just-
asking everybody.
You were just making eye contact,
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah. Yes.
So and if even if, okay, skip forward to slide 4. This one kind of ties into that. So the ending fund balance we originally proposed was 9.5 million. With our third quarter projections, we're at 8.9 million. So we know that $650,000 projected less ending fund balance that rolls over to help us with next year is part of our issue. And then if we're also trying to make sure we provide a 10% ending fund balance, which is it's just to meet with the board policy. I realize there's layers in there if we don't meet that. I think it's a good policy. It's good for us to bring forward what you guys are saying you would like to see. So these are other strategies we're saying. Now, like you're saying, vacancy savings is a real thing that happens. It's a projection, and Jonathan can talk about it. He's going to go over some mitigation strategies that'll come next that also play into it. So when we say, these are our strategies to stay within that 10%, there's other things that are going to play into it. And let Jonathan take over with the next few slides, starting on slide 6. That'll give you other mitigation strategies that are also there to help us make up some of that difference. I see a question. Sorry.
Okay, I have a queue. A couple folks that haven't had a chance to speak yet, Mike, and then Siobhan, and then we'll come back around to folks that
Thanks.
have additional questions.
So I want to acknowledge that what the staff is trying to do is sort of like building the airplane while it's flying. And so I recognize that there are a lot of variables that are up in the air that you can't nail down, but you still have to try to make assumptions and decisions. So I do understand that. But I'm wondering what the strategy is. It sounds like there's a catch up to do with the budget development subcommittee. And I'm wondering what the strategy is to reconcile the fact that we've come this far in the process, but they haven't participated in parts of it, it sounds like. And so what's the strategy there to address that?
And being new to the college, I'm still figuring out all those areas. Been to a couple of the meetings. That's certainly something Jonathan and I are happy to sit with them and go through what that might look like. What's that path forward? The challenging part is having 2 weeks to say, okay, now we have this new quarter update. We have to provide a balanced budget. That's just not an option for us as finance people. So absolutely, it's not trying to cut out any part of the process or not be transparent. So we can absolutely do that. And like you said, still building the plane, there's still things that are going to ebb and flow as we do this. We still have to present a budget that's with all the best data we have as of today.
Well, I will say that I fully understand that the board is going to have to, the budget committee, and ultimately the board's going to have to make a decision based on the best of information we have available at the time. So I do acknowledge that.
Okay, Siobhan?
Sorry, I was muted. First of all, my question already got asked by Lisa, so I just would like to know about those positions because I was really kind of excited. And then the second thing that I wanted to ask specifically to this is, so if we still have 3 months left and we're $646,000 off, is there a possibility to make that up in this time frame?
That's a good question. What it would have to imply is that there's something that's going to deviate from what we've projected. I don't think there's any deviation in our revenue, so it would have to be in our expenditures. And based on all the things that have happened already, we might be able to make up a little, but we also may lose it in the other areas. So it tends to go up and down. I wouldn't be comfortable saying, yeah, we can make up half that difference. I wouldn't be comfortable saying that at this point, based on the data we've seen. We really nailed through a lot of that. That doesn't mean there's not. It only takes 1 or 2 things that throw you one way or the other, because 650,000 out of 100 million is a really small percentage. So that gives very little leeway unless something substantially changes.
Okay, Steve?
Yep. Well, thanks for the explanations. Have helped me. Some of my questions have been answered through the other folks' questions. So, but where I'm at right now, I just mostly clarifying. I believe what you're telling us is that the kind of late breaking recommendation to the budget committee to not fill those vacant positions is entirely about meeting board policy of a 10% ending fund balance this time next year.
Correct.
So the board, not so much the budget committee, but the board does have some leeway if it chooses to, to set something other than that particular target. I'm not suggesting we want to do that. That's a discussion that'll come later, but you're just doing your job to meet the policies that we've set for you. So appreciate that. As a matter of process, this is a recommendation for next year, not so much for this year, but we have this issue, I think, every year where you set some preliminary budget, the committee, meets and reviews, questions come up, things change, just like happened here. And then the faculty and staff on the various committees get upset for understandable reasons that they're left out of the process. And you just sort of explained why. Well, we only have a couple of weeks, and I get all of that. Nonetheless, I think there's some value in trying to think through, well, how do we, next year, right? I don't think we can do so much at this point this year, but how do we accommodate them back into the process, knowing that that's a thing that's likely to happen every year?
Mm-hmm. And just to respond a little bit to that, and I know Jonathan, Director of Budget and Resource Planning, has been here six months or so. So we both have a little bit of ground on us coming into the next year, but my preferred process is to start budget development October, November, and give yourself plenty of lead time. Now, there's a lot of changes that can happen because we also have to wait for a state legislature. So we may still end up in the same place if they don't make decisions till May. That's unfortunate. So we may end up here again, but at least we've been through the process. So I agree with you. I hear you. And that would absolutely be one of my goals.
William?
I just want to ask for clarification on the reduction in materials and supplies. Is there any risk that this is going to lead to instructors having to buy and bring their own materials to class? Can you clarify more on what that means?
There shouldn't be that I'm aware of, and not that I'm sure Jonathan's aware of, because they still have they're still getting their budget that they have this year plus 3%. So we're not reducing anything in there. So unless there's something that's happening right now that neither of us are aware of, no, there shouldn't be. And if it comes to that particular case, that's also why we have contingency money. So let's say there's something substantial that we didn't think of or didn't know was going to happen. Certainly that's why that availability is there.
Okay, I think we're ready to.
I do have one more question. I just didn't know if there was anybody else that had a first go around. So
nobody else in the queue.
Okay, thank you. How much money do we currently have in the our contingency fund?
That might be
For this year, Lisa? Is that what you're asking? For this current
For
year.
this current year, our contingency.
I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to look.
That was in our information request, wasn't it? Yeah, so, oh no, that was FY 23. Doesn't have FY 24. Oh,
I know, I recalled seeing it also, but when I was looking back, I couldn't find it.
896.65.
that's been spent, I think it said.
Oh, good. Oh, that's been used. Yeah.
Alejandra here is one of our budget analysts. She does a fabulous job and she'll probably want to push me down the stairs later for acknowledging how great she is, so. Were there other questions while they're looking that up? We have a few more slides we can continue to go through. I will tag Jonathan in. He's going to hit these last few slides and then if you have more questions.
My phone a friend says we have 5.6 million left in contingency. We've used just over 1 million. Under. Okay. Any other questions for move on?
And can you remind me how much we have to, you're going to talk about that in these next slides,
Yeah,
actually.
I'll touch a little bit on it. Yep. Okay. We can go to the next slide. We have time check. We have 14 minutes-ish. So I'm gonna try to get through these and we can have a little bit of discussion too. So last time there were some questions about the reserve for revenue shortfall and how we calculated that last year versus how we landed at 350,000 this year. So we mentioned last year, the reserve, there were a couple of things that we built in that were really completely unknown at the time we were setting last year's budget. One of them was the tax credit. The other was we just didn't know what state funding was going to come in at. And also we didn't have enough data to predict how enrollment was trending. So we plugged in, you can see the amounts up here, and that's how we got to the 4 million. Say if we didn't get these 4 items, if they didn't come in like we thought, we have 4 million as a reserve and expenditure budget to cover these. So this year we have the ERTC budgeted as federal income. Kara confirmed it has been filed. So it is sitting in the IRS queue right now. We checked on it just last week. It's still being processed. So that IRS is obviously busy right now. So that is now in the official budget. You can see it in a budget line at 1.4 million. The state biennium funding is flat this year. So that's not something that's unknown at this point for the year that we're planning. And also we have 6 to 7 terms of increased enrollment. So we have a better trajectory of what enrollment looks at. So this year we said 3 million of that, we don't even need to factor because it's in the budget. And then we know what enrollment's going to look like. So what we're saying is our target is 3.5%. If we don't meet that, we have about 1.5% of reserve to cover us. So we have, if we only get to 1%, we have another 1.5% or 2%, then we have another 2.5% worth of reserve to help us out. So that's how we got to the 350,000. Any questions about reserve? Does that clarify questions on that? Yeah, Charlie. Sorry.
I keep hearing that numbers in the millions are small percentages. Numbers in the hundreds of thousands are even smaller percentages.
Correct.
That's a degree of precision that I said last time I don't think is warranted.
Yeah.
I'll continue to say that.
That's a good point. And we'll talk a little about that on the next slide too. So if you want to go to the next slide.
Oh, well, hold on, Mike.
Yep.
Well, I had the similar thought that that's such a relatively small number that I'm not sure that we need that reserve, that particular reserve. So for what it's worth.
Sure. Okay. That's a good point. Okay. So to that point, they're put under 2 different hats, right? You've got one hat that's budgeting, that's trying to give yourself the budget authority to do your mission. And that's the above and beyond. If we say we're going to spend 900,000, then we want to give ourselves $1 million worth of budget authority to do it in case things come in better or worse. With forecasting and with risk mitigation, there are things built into the forecasts. So, one of those is vacancy savings, not swirl. So it's a similar concept. The vacancy savings has been 2.5% to 3% consistently over the last 10 years. We do calculations on this once or twice a year. We pull the numbers, we see what the vacancy savings are versus what we budgeted. This year, we plugged in 2.5% into our forecast, and it's been consistent. And when you factor in what the OPE cost, the benefit cost, it comes out to about 2 million. That's been consistent over time through the pandemic, through the recession. It's just the normal churn that you see with folks going on to better jobs, people moving positions and whatnot. The same can be said for materials and supplies when we budget for ourselves. It's just like if we're saying, we're going to build a house and we want to give ourselves a 10% contingency. We know we're not going to spend that full amount. So we build in another 1 to 2% of, we're not going to spend about $1 million of what we build into materials and supplies. And that could come over or under, but we budget for over. So we have about $1 million worth of M&S that's this year that's built into the budget. So contingencies, we talked about that. The total contingency, not including the reserve for next year, will be 2.8 million. So that is also what we have built into the budget to help us mitigate some of these risks. The reserve for revenue shortfall, we've already talked about that one. It's just an additional cushion, and the budget committee, we can talk about moving it back into the budget to cover some of the ending fund balances. We are adding 400 or we're proposing to add 450-ish thousand to contingency. So that number will go up a little bit to help us with that mission of mitigating risk. And then we also have 1.35 million that's the strategic investments for facilities, for IT, for enrollment investment, for Lane Forward, for collaboration and innovation across campus. Right now, the forecasts that we've plugged in, that we've showed you, includes carrying those forward. So as the board evolves, as we evolve as an institution, those theoretically could change how much and what we want to invest in. So structurally, comes up to about $6.5 million worth of budgeted risk mitigation, where the forecast is a different lens where those things could or could not play out.
Okay, Steve.
Well, a couple comments. I sort of am interested in making a motion. I won't do it just yet to approve the budget, but I just wanted to explain a little bit up front why. Sort of as explained and amended, it seems to satisfy board policy, and at this point in time, I like to think of it as sort of a big picture document, right? That as we have seen this past year and every other year, this is a starting point, and as we get into things, money can be moved. Staff usually come and propose, money to be moved here or there to make these changes as we get more clear on what the, actual revenue and expenses are, and the board can approve those as it sees fit. So there's plenty of opportunity along the way to make adjustments as that. So therefore, whatever imperfections there may be right here and now, I feel like there's plenty of opportunity to smooth those out in the year to come as we go. But as a framework to move forward into FY25, I feel satisfied. But I wanted to say that out front before making a motion because, well, largely because there's many budget committee members who are new, and I didn't want to surprise them with like, hey, maybe there's more discussion to be had. I wanted to leave that opportunity out there.
William.
I did want to ask one final question. Is there information on like the type of students for your enrollment growth projections? So like international students, out-of-state students, because that would obviously impact, with the differentials in the tuition rates.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good point. When we talk about enrollment growth, there's a couple of different ways you can slice that. And part of that is what type of student we get. And we have a strong institutional research department. She's worth 3 people in her weight versus worth of data analysis. But yes, we can get that information. Yeah.
Okay, Lisa, and then I think we need to wrap up because we have to allow for time to change to the next meeting.
Sure, thank you. So I guess I still needed more clarification on the contingency because 5.6 million was not the contingency for the last year's budget, right? Fiscal year 24. That seems really high based on some of the numbers that we've discussed in meetings. And then I'm seeing So I'm curious, what is the current balance in the contingency fund? Because when I look at the shortfall for the EFB, it's $217,400, right? How much is in the contingency fund currently? And then we've got 350 that I've heard several people say may not need, or I will correct myself, a couple people comment on, and someone say we may not need that because it's such a small amount. Aren't there some adjustments that could be made to get us to the ending fund balance right in front of us?
There could be, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is we're building a framework for us to be able to be nimble and make those adjustments as Q4 comes in, right? We like Kara said, we don't know what's going to happen in the next 2 months. We have a good projection. So the idea is for us to have the framework, but also be relatively conservative with our planning. But yeah.
And so the board would basically make those decisions either in the next budget meeting for the board or moving forward in how we adjust in the budget.
That is a possibility. Yeah. Okay. I used my phone a friend. I'm going to use my eliminate two choices to ask Alejandra. Was that 6 million for contingency this year, did that include the reserve or is that different? It did include the reserve.
The reserve.
Okay,
yeah.
so
I was looking for what was in the budget.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. And we'll come back next week, answer some questions and have some continued discussion. Oh, Siobhan.
Just really quick, any questions asked after this meeting, will they also be included in the information request documents that we get?
Correct. Yep.
You?
Okay, thank you, everybody.
All right. We'll call the work session for May 15th to order here. We'll start off with roll call.
Kevin Alltucker,
Here.
Denise Diamond,
Here.
Mike Eister,
Here.
Austin
Here.
Fullnagy,
Here.
Lisa Fragala,
Here.
Steve Mattel,
Here.
Zach Mulholland.
Excellent. Zach is running a little bit late from his presentation. He'll be joining us shortly. Responses to information requests. Many of them were about the budget, so we saw many of these information requests in the budget committee meeting. But wanted to cover, see if there was any comments, questions, or responses to any of those. All right, seeing none. Oh, really quick, we did do the land acknowledgement during the budget committee meeting, which was our first meeting prior to this one. So I just wanted to verify that that was addressed. The equity lens questions. Once again, this is just in front of us, just to have available to us as we. Oh, yes, Mike.
Oh, I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh, yeah, no, go ahead.
I was wondering about the possibility of us having a laminated sheet with the 6 questions on it in front of us. So we have that right there at every meeting.
Understood. Gotcha. And would you like that as opposed to something on board docs or?
Well, we wouldn't have to put it on board docs
Yep.
if we had it right here in front of us. Or
Absolutely.
we could do both, you know,
Yeah.
not an either or.
Some
Yeah.
folks are virtual.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really quick, I also wanted to clarify because we also in the board library, we have like the equity lens. It's like a questionnaire essentially. And it like talks about like different groups and stuff like that. Is that more or less what you're talking about? Is that?
No, the 6 questions is what I'm talking
The
about.
6 questions.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, perfect. We can certainly cover that. And noted. All right, next we're going to cover the adoption of the agenda. Need a motion and a second for that?
So move.
All right,
Second.
excellent. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, actually, let's do a roll call vote just to make it official and then we'll go from there.
Kevin Alltucker,
Aye.
Denise Diamond,
Aye.
Mike Eister,
Aye.
Austin Fullnagy,
Aye.
Lisa Fragala,
Aye.
Steve Mattel.
All right. Oh, Mike?
Yeah, just a process question. We take a roll call vote on that every month.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a kind of inconsequential vote. And I don't know why we couldn't just speed it up and do a all in favor, please say aye. Just a thought.
Okay, absolutely. If the board would like to do it that way, we can certainly do it that way, for sure. All right, now that the agenda has been adopted, we'll move on to our discussion items. The first one is a presentation in regards to the Black Pioneer Monument. We brought this up for discussion last time. I appreciate the board willingness to discuss this. And we have 2 speakers in regards to that. I'll let them sit down yep, sir. And yeah, if you could just take a moment just to introduce yourself while we pull up the slideshow. And then we can we're going to have a presentation and then a discussion about the Black Pioneer Monument and how we potentially could participate in it.
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. So my name is Talisha Brown Crowell. I'm the Executive Director of the Black Cultural Initiative, and it's really wonderful to be in front of you, the board of the LCC. It's really fantastic, both as a community member, as a student or past student, I should say, to really bring to you this proposal and to tell you a little bit about how we came to sit here. So my name is Talisha Brown Crowell. This is our relationships coordinator, Irene Rashid. She is also the wife of Dr. Lawrence Rashid, which I'm sure all of y'all know. So we became a part of this project through the lens of the Lane County History Museum. Dr. Rashid and Irene worked together with that organization to look at monuments throughout Lane County and to really notice from the lens of a Black community member how are Black people represented in our monuments? And what they recognized is there were no monuments for Black people, although Black people have actually lived in Eugene, Springfield, and Lane County since the 40s and even the 30s, that there was no representation of Black people. There were plaques and there were little displays, but nothing that really, in a very significant and historic and way, really signified the actual contribution of Black people to this area. And so we wanted to rectify that, not just in word, but in an action. And so we got involved in this project. What we're wanting to do is to create a large-scale bronze monument for the original pioneering and founding Black families of Eugene, Springfield. So what many of you may or may not know is that Eugene was a sundown town in the 1940s. Black people could work in Eugene, but come sundown would have to leave the city premises in order to reside. And so the place that they oftentimes lived was at what is now called Across the Bridge or the Ferry Street Village. And in that place, the Willamette River wasn't dammed, so it actually underwent a lot of flooding. There were road rats. It was actually fairly horrific conditions. But there are actually so this is 75 years later, 3 living folks who lived in that Ferry Street Village area. And they tell the story about how they grew up for want of nothing because they were held by community, by family in their homes. Now, at the time, this is now what is now called Alton Baker Park. The Lane County gave those residents 6 days' notice to vacate their homes in order to start the erection of Alton Baker Park. A county commissioner voted it in really quickly, got a quick vote, and voila, their homes were bulldozed. This history is oftentimes untold. Very few people know about this history. Very few people know that Black people actually lived and created homes and a residence and a community and a chapel. They had a lot of community building entities in that area. Very few people know about that. And so we're really wanting to change that, to change the history and the legacy of erasure of Black people in our local area. And one of the ways that we feel is really important to do that so that not only Black people know we've been here since the 1940s, but so that the wider community knows that we are here and that we have had an important and significant contribution to this local area. So we have started this project. As you see there on the screen, the proposal is called Sundown Across the Bridge. Irene Rashid will speak about it a little bit more in depth. But long story short, on July 21st, we will have a wonderful 75th anniversary commemoration and celebration for those founding Black families to both acknowledge that they were present and also because we're working in collaboration with the city of Eugene and the county, as well as a lot of other key stakeholders, including, we hope, LCC will participate, key stakeholders throughout our area to create this commemoration celebration and honoring, and also for the city and the county, an apology. Those families have never had a formal apology. So the mayor and the chair of the county commissioners have agreed. We have as well letters of support from both the city of Eugene and the Lane County Board of County Commissioners. So Irene Rashid will talk a little bit about our proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Irene, if you wouldn't mind using the microphone so that the folks on Zoom could hear you. Thank you.
Yes, can you hear me fine? Okay, so going to page 2, we'll start there. Just to reiterate what Talisha said, our mission is to have the foundational pioneering Black families, the displacement of their entire neighborhood, and subsequently, the disbursement of those communities and prevention of them from recreating another neighborhood after their homes were bulldozed down, properly acknowledged by the city of Eugene and Lane County, through the erection of a sizable monument in Alton Baker Park. And we aim to have those agencies and businesses who have establishments that currently lay on that land where this neighborhood was participate in that. So that would include eWeb, University of Oregon, the City of Eugene, Kendall Ford, and Lithia Motors. They all sit on that land. We are encouraging outside of those who are actually on the land, 5 other institutions that are longstanding within this community and are staples for those of us who are local to become diamond sponsors of this project. And that would mean that they would contribute to the cost of the monument's erections with donations of $25K minimally per organization, and also have their participation in the erection of this monument immortalized on the monument's actual plot with a name, logo, and a small quote, if desired, of those key 5 partners. As Felicia mentioned, on July 21st, there will be a commemoration ceremony where a half to full scale model of the final monument will be presented to all of Lane County at Alton Baker Park. And we'll just have festivities around this historic moment. Let's look at some of the key agencies and timelines. I'm not going to get deeply into this. I know that hopefully this has been shared with the entire board, but pages 3 through 7 talk about the key agencies that are participating currently, right? And so obviously that's the City of Eugene, that is Lane County, that is eWeb, and then we've been authorized to manage the project, bring funds outside of what the city and the county are offering, and do public outreach. We also are in charge of managing that commemoration celebration. It's really important to mention that we are doing this on behalf of the city and county because they are the people that were responsible for the displacement and alienation of those families. Going to page 8 and 9, just taking a look at our artist on page 9. We have chosen a local Black artist. His name is Percy Apau. He lives here in Eugene, Oregon. He has an extensive history. He actually sat and still sits on Lane County Arts Council. He works in wood, metal. Also, he does plaster and painting. And so he is actually the designs that are coming up, responsible for the designs that you will see following. There are 3 main designs. I believe we're leaning toward design 3 that were proposed. Design 1 is a smaller scale monument. And I think we will not be going with this based on our feedback from the families. Those survivors, those last 3 survivors. Design 2 and design 3. Design 2 and design 3 are the main 2 that we are considering at this point. Design 2 does require the running of water, and where we've chosen for the spot after having walked through with the City of Eugene, we may not be able to accommodate design 2. So I think we're standing firm on design 3, which will allow for us to do full portrayals. And I want to express that as we look at design 3, the faces that you see there and the images that you see will be redesigned by the artist according to the photographs of actual family members who lived in that Berry Street community. And so those final renderings will be presented to the public during that July 21st celebration. And then on page 14, we have a basic monument timeline. Again, I won't go through the timeline itself. You'll have an opportunity at your leisure to look at that in the proposal. We do want to speak a little bit about how Lane Community College can get involved. So going to page 15, it's important to note that the Black Cultural Initiative has had a relationship with LCC for several years. We are currently collaborating through Bill 3410 on a grant with LCC Business Development Center. That grant has been awarded. That's in partnership with our Black Business Incubator over at the People's Collective at 17th and Jefferson. And so we're excited about that partnership. But outside of that, we've actually been sponsors of your events. So anytime LCC does outreach to the Black community and we are aware of it, we make sure that we sponsor those events. In addition to that, LCC has hosted booths at our annual festival every year. It's important to note that this year you will not have that opportunity. We've set our festival aside so that we can manage this commemoration ceremony, and we do hope that you will be present for that, whether you choose to engage in this project or not. On page 17, it's just a quick look at some of the most recent collaborations that we've had with you guys. And moving on to page 18, I want to discuss a little bit about the pathways to action that we would like to see LCC engage in. So it is wonderful to hear as we bump into people, so many people have attended, come out for the powwows, have a connection to LCC. You guys are a community staple. And so it's an honor for us to have the potential of bringing your institution in as one of our main supporters for this monument project, and also the history that's being made for all of Lane County. There are many ways that you can be involved. These are some that we are suggesting. Ideally, we'd like to see LCC be a diamond sponsor with a minimum of that $25,000 contribution toward the design and the fabrication of the monument. We would love to see LCC among those 5 institutions whose names and logos and quotes, if so chosen, are immortalized in bronze or stone at the place of the monument in Alta Baker Park. If you choose to go that route, we would also ask that you participate in the commemoration ceremony on July 21st, where our 5 diamond sponsors will be addressing the public, will speak about their contributions, and have an opportunity to acknowledge that this monument is being made possible by those organizations. And if you do that, you would have to appoint a single representative to speak on your behalf at the event, and also engage those 3 surviving elders from those original families. We would also like to see and/or a combination of one or more of the following: human, financial, or in-kind resources toward that July 21st event, pardon the typo, and if you are not a diamond sponsor, a donation toward the monument still. So perhaps you can't meet that measure of being a diamond sponsor, but we would still like you to be involved. I do want to acknowledge that it would look different, obviously, and we hope to have you as a diamond sponsor. As Talisha mentioned, on pages 20 through 22 are our support letters. These are letters from Lane County and the City of Eugene authorizing us to manage this project, collect funds on behalf of the city and the county for the erection of this monument, and manage the commemoration ceremony that will unveil this monument project to all of Lane County. Thank you.
Excellent. If we can go back to the pathways to action. So the reason why we brought this up is to get some direction from the board, also to answer any questions you might have about the monument and so forth. And depending on the direction you would like to go, I can work with the president to move forward with that. Mike, you had the first question.
So civil rights and public transit have been closely intertwined, inextricably intertwined. And I know LTD to be very interested. So, and it turns out that one of the earliest Black residents of our area was Wiley Griffin, who operated his own public transportation system in late 1800s, early 1900s. So there might be a connection there that I'll just offer for exploration. Overall, I think this is a good idea.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for mentioning that. Yes, we are in communication and conversation with LTD, and also they'll be hosting an event, I think in another month, really talking about their history of LTD and really recognizing that the first person to start, the predecessor for LTD was Wiley Griffin, who was a Black man and a resident of Eugene.
One of the earliest.
One of the earliest. Yeah. Thank you. I'm glad that you know that history. We shall share it with all.
Absolutely. Kevin?
Yeah, thank you for bringing this to the board. I'm in favor of working out some arrangement how LCC can participate. I think it's an important project for our community that helps tell more of the complete story, which is important. So I'm very supportive.
Steve?
Yeah, I don't have much more to add other than just my voice that I agree. Seems like a really important project and a bit of history that, like you said, most folks don't know, and this would help fill that gap. So I think LCC should participate in some way as well.
Excellent.
Yes, as one of our primary educational institutions, we would appreciate LCC's support in this project.
We'll move on to Zoom. Denise? Oh,
Yes, I'm absolutely in favor of, I think as the main, as the one and only community college, we have a responsibility to be present. And I believe I don't know how, I don't know the history of our Black Student Union or our African American Student Program Coordinator, but programs at LCC, but I think there's an opportunity to collaborate so that it's a collaboration also with our students. And I would, I think that could be very beneficial. I hear a core theme and message of education being presented, and just for the entire community. So that certainly means us. So I'm all in.
Excellent. Thank you, Denise. Lisa?
Yeah, I am also very supportive. I really appreciate you coming to present to us this evening, and would just like to say that the recognition of what happened to the families living across the river that recognition is long overdue. So I'm excited that we can support this monument as the community college.
Thank you.
Absolutely. First off, let me just echo that support, especially with the Diamond sponsorship, and hearing the general support that I'm hearing from the board. I'll work with the president on where we can allocate those funds and so forth, and participate in the commemoration and so forth. And I also feel that, yes, we have a role to play as an institution in our community to show the support and to show and have the backing of this monument to communicate that there's a history that needs to be remembered. There's a history that needs to be educated in the populace, because there haven't been opportunity. There's opportunities to expand our education around our past and in this community. I look forward to more ways to get to participate, and I look forward to other ways that we can expand our knowledge of our history. And I'm in full support of this, and greatly appreciate hearing the commitment from the board, and look forward to the further discussion and on this topic.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other final questions? One last question. I noticed obviously there was letters of support from the city and the county. Obviously that was to, so you could present on it, do the ceremony and so forth. Is there a letter of support that you're also asking from other organizations? You were reaching out to 5 other organizations, and obviously for financial support, obviously public community support. Does that also require like a letter as well, or as far as like a board action? I'm just trying to clarify all the board actions to be taken.
Yes, as part of our fundraising efforts, it is appreciated any institutions that are onboarding with the project that they provide a letter of support on behalf of the monument.
Perfect. Excellent. And there's a template that we can use and so forth, and we could bring it to a board. Excellent. Great. All right. Seeing no more questions, we immensely appreciate this. Like I said, I'll work with the president to move forward with this.
Thank you for meeting.
Greatly appreciate the presentation. All right, moving to our next agenda item, our program spotlight of the international programs. Dr.
Yes, Dr. Joyce, I'd like for you to go ahead and introduce our international programs
right.
area.
Thank you. I really am glad to see our team here. I think it's been a year and a half since, or maybe two, since international programs had a presentation, and we thought it was time for that. Anyway, thank you. If you could all come on. And can you please introduce your names, each person?
I will introduce everyone. Yes, thank you. Good evening, Chair Fulnegi, President Bolger, members of the board. Thank you for having the international programs back again this year to provide you an update of the fantastic work this team has been doing and all of the students who've been engaged across the campus as well too. Tonight I have with me William Velez, who is our Director of International Programs.
Hello.
We also have Carla Anderson, who's our Associate Director. Nezreen Saba. And Luis Daniel Hernandez Moreno, who is a student peer mentor as well with us this evening. So I'm going to hand this off to one of our members to start our presentation.
Thank you so much, Board of Education, President Bolger, for the opportunity to speak to you today. I want to start us with a small truncated version of our mission, of our goals as a department. So if we go to the second slide, I want to read to you briefly a little bit of where we focus our passion and our efforts. So Lane International Programs serves the community locally and globally by building relationships with diverse students and partners through an inclusive, welcoming culture of service and support. And that's at the core of what we do and what we look to continue to support our international students, both overseas as well as when they get here to Lane. So today, we kind of want to go over three main areas that we want to review with you, and you've had an opportunity to see our presentation before you as well. But we're going to talk a little bit about our enrollment numbers. We're going to then dive a little bit into our student engagement. And then finally, we want to share with you some exciting program updates that we are looking forward to continuing to implement, and some that we've already started to work on throughout this year. And so if we go to the next slide, I'm going to tell you a little bit about our enrollment and kind of where we are at as we head towards the fall term, which I think is very exciting for us as a department. We're looking at currently international programs has an enrollment number of about 141 students who are currently registered on campus for classes. And those students are coming from about 43 different countries. We have currently for the fall term about 81 students who are being admitted already for the incoming fall term, compared to 74 students that we had last year in total. So we're already ahead in the number of admit students for the fall term. An exciting number that you might actually find exciting, like I did, is that we have about 223 students who are still incomplete in their application, who are still working through to try to get through the process of admission to the fall term. Out of that, we have in last year a 64% conversion from admitted to enrolled. That last year was about 47 students. This year, if we receive no more admits from where we're at right now, we're already ahead of that number. We have we would having about 52 students if there's no more admissions happening beyond today. However, our deadline for admission is July 15th. So we have 2 months still to work through those 223 applicants. And then we have some additional exciting things we'll share with you at the end of the presentation as well that might enhance that for us also. So I wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a perspective on that and where we are at currently today. But I also want to invite the rest of my team to share with you a little bit more about how we get to that 81 admitted students. How do we get to those 223 applicants that are still in the process of working through their process? So I'm going to invite Nezreen to come and share with you a little bit on the next slide about where we have been this year.
Thanks, Will. And I'm glad to be here to talk to you today about our international recruitment efforts. Now, since I've joined, we have visited the Middle East as a new market, but we also do have established markets that we visit. And we identify markets through international stakeholder engagement and market intelligence. So our stakeholders would include our agent partners, the U.S. State Department, and official reports released through Education USA. Now, our established markets include Sub-Saharan Africa, Europe, Southeast Asia, and since I joined, as mentioned, we've started to explore new markets such as the Middle East and North Africa. Now, I'll hand over to Carla to discuss our admits. Thank you.
Thank you, Nazreen, and good evening, President Bolger and the board. It is so delightful to have an opportunity to be here again and give you a sneak peek into all the exciting things that we're doing and the things we're passionate about. And so I've been here for a while, and I want to talk about some of the exciting things in our more established markets. Did you know that Lane Community College has a cheerleading squad? Yeah, I'm going to tell you where they are. It would be kind of cool if we did have one on campus. But anyway, we have cheerleaders and partners around the world who love Lane Community College. I have been working with an American high school counselor who's based at an international school in Uzbekistan. She and I have corresponded for several years, and last year we had the opportunity to actually go there, and I told her we're coming. She said, I have a student for you. I'm very passionate. And one of the reasons she's very passionate about Lane as a community college is our housing, because it really sets us apart as a community college. So she set up a meeting for the mother and the student to come and meet with us. We had a great meeting. He applied, he's admitted. The mother even came to Lane on her own to visit, to check us out, have a tour of the housing, have a tour of campus, and he is admitted for fall term and will be coming in September. I hope you all have the opportunity to meet him when he comes. But this is an example of a high school counselor overseas at an international school. Her name is Jeanette Wan. She is one of our cheerleaders. She's one of our supporters. She loves Lane. Another example I want to point out, I'm sure many of you remember our South African student government president, Nekar Ramlakan, who spoke last year at graduation. Throughout the recruitment process before he came to Lane, I got to know him and his family really, really well. They love Lane. You can see the success he experienced at Lane. He's at U of O now. I did an educational fair in South Africa where we have a booth and we talked to parents and students. His mother came and sat with me at the booth. I mean, that's like gold. And this is another cheerleader of ours. Parents abroad are our cheerleaders. They love us and they support us. Another example I want to briefly talk about is the government of Togo. I know many of you met the delegation of 4 Togolese who came to graduation last year. They love Lane. In January, I had the pleasure of returning to Togo for the 3rd time. And I met with the Ministry of Higher Education, Mr. Zogbema, who is the Director of Scholarships. They had funded the first 2 students, Mimi and Kajovi, who we all saw graduate. He loves Lane. And Ambassador Hegbe in Washington, D.C. gave a great report also, not only of the success of their students, but also the reception that they received here on campus and the feeling they left with just by being here during graduation. And they are exploring ways. Mr. Zogbema told me, I want as many students as possible to go to Lane. So he has a lot of ideas and he's hoping to release more scholarship funds directly from the government. So we have cheerleaders. They're foreign government officials. They love Lane. They want to support us and they partner with us. And an example, I had 3 weeks ago on a Sunday, I had the pleasure of being in Japan. And I did a 7-hour expo, which is really long. But you know what? Mizuki Takeuchi, she graduated last year from Lane Community College. She's in Japan now. She came and sat with me for 7 hours at that table, speaking constantly the entire time with students and parents. And she said, I love Lane so much. Lane transformed my life. She had so many good things to say. And that's like gold to me. She's one of our cheerleaders. She's alumni And she is very passionate about Lane. And she said, anytime, call on me if you need me to represent Lane in Japan. And current students are cheerleaders as well. Last year, I visited Japan, and one of our current students happened to be on a vacation term home visiting his family. And he said, let's go to my high school. So he and I went together to his high school and presented to all his friends that were still students there. And it was very, very powerful experience. So I just wanted to demonstrate to you how proud we can be. And we have cheerleaders all around, supporters who are helping in these efforts and who are directly sending students to Lane. So thank you for your support. Thank you for letting us give you a sneak peek into our work. And I'll hand it back to Mandy.
Carla is going to be getting ready to head back to Japan in June. And we also have a graduate, Hina Tamura, who decided to change her leave time a week early to go home after commencement so she can join Carla at her event. And I think there's a saying about what's the best compliment, that of a referral. And so Carla's demonstrating we have students and parents globally who are giving us that compliment of a referral and taking time out of their day to say, come to Lane, because our students or myself as a student had a great opportunity and experience there. So I think that speaks volume. Looking ahead, Nesreen talked about some of the work that she's been doing here since she arrived at Lane, and we'll go ahead and look at the next slide. One more. There we go. So when we came to you last time, we talked about the importance of diversifying our portfolio because we're looking globally at impacts that are occurring, and we can't rely just on one market, one region. So the need to diversify is extremely important. With new staff that you so kindly supported along with President Bolger in helping us to increase our staff support, we've been able to diversify our market even more. So as Carla has been working in South Africa, she's now moved into North African regions. There's already impacts that we can see from the that Will's been doing in Latin America, and he's going to talk to you a little bit more about that, including Nesreen's work in the Middle East as well too. So we're seeing very quickly a turnaround in our recruitment efforts, which is fantastic. And that's because of your support with our staffing as well too. We also want to stay engaged in our existing markets that we've talked to you about in Japan and Vietnam. So we've had the opportunity to diversify our portfolio very quickly, which is really exciting as well too.
All right. If we go to the next slide, I want to also highlight for you a little bit about some of our top countries. As Mandy was saying, we're continuing to focus on diversifying our population, but I kind of want to give you a little bit of a breakdown on kind of where our students are coming from. So the majority of our students currently are coming from Japan. About 25% of our student body currently at Lane comes from Japan. The second following country is Vietnam, and we have had a very strong history with both of those countries. For this upcoming class for the fall, we already have approximately 12 Japanese students that are already admitted, and that most likely, because of our history with Japan and the US, most likely will be able to receive their visas to come for the fall term. We have in Vietnam currently already about 10 students admitted for the fall term, with an additional 8 who are in the process of completing their admissions process. We have had really great success with our efforts in South Africa specifically. We have an excellent partner there who's sending students to Lane specifically on a regular basis. So this fall, we already have about 13 students admitted for fall term, and we have an additional 9 students who are in the process of being admitted as well. We have our partnership with the UAE, which I'll tell you more about in a minute, but I think you have already been briefed on that before, who also then makes up a bigger amount of our students in volume of students specifically. We're being followed by Myanmar, Togo, and then we have a myriad of countries all over the globe as well. And then some countries that are not listed in there that we do have presence in that we continue to work on, but that send typically 1 student to 2 students per country. And they're kind of conglomerated into those 2 other sections at the end. So you'll get to see that we have students from current markets that we work on heavily that continually send students to Lane, and we have some new diversifying markets that continue to also be a good result of the work of our recruitment efforts in our staff. I kind of want to go to the next slide and give you an idea, just so that you understand that this work happens on the admission side, but there is a lot of work that happens before that on the generation of leads. So some of this travel that you're hearing that Lane is going into is generating for us not necessarily enrolled students in the seeds immediately. It's generating leads of people who perhaps have heard of us because of those excellent partners that we've developed over the years, or people who are just hearing from us for the first time at that particular event. And so we're generating lead, we're generating interest, and then we have to come back home and continue to work on that interest and continue to work on those, leveraging those partnerships and having those partners be an influence on the decision process for those families and those students. And so you have a little bit of a breakdown here on this last year's percentages of student lead generation from those recruitment efforts. So we had an opportunity to go to the United Emirates, and we had a huge increase on our leads in the population there. Even though we have a partnership with the government of UAE, we were also working to continue to increase the influx of students coming from that region, coming directly from the country, not necessarily through the partnership. We have partnerships in many other countries, and we're continuing to work at generating leads and interest and getting the word of Lane being here as an option for students globally to come to study here at Lane. I want to move us to the next section real quick, and I'm going to invite Mandy to come talk to you a little bit about that second section, our student engagement at Lane.
Thank you. So we opened up with our mission, and if you look at the college's mission, we align with the piece on being inclusive. And so we're working on building relationships, being inclusive, providing a welcoming and supportive outreach and services to our students. And it's through our student engagement strategies that we are really promoting a holistic support model that also has a direct impact on the retention of our students. Look at the next slide a little bit more. And that's how we've revamped our peer mentoring program to include a residential peer mentoring component of it. So all of our peer mentors are now residential peer mentors. They live on site at Titan Court. Will's going to talk a little bit about some of the adjustments that we've made to the housing and student stipend. But one of the things that I want to point out is that we as a program are reinvesting in our college with our residential peer mentors living on site at our own housing location as well too. What we've done is we've really focused on 4 particular areas of engagement. Those include group conversation activities that occur. Some of you may have attended or have heard of our coffee talks that are incredibly popular. We have a number of different social engagements, and Luis is going to come and talk a little bit about those as well too. We have a concerted effort focus on academic success with our project specialists that work in our office. And then we're also attending to elements of our students' overall health and wellness. Luis?
Hello, everyone. My name is Luis. I'm an international student from Brazil and Venezuela. I've been studying here at Lane for 2 years, and I've been a peer mentor since last year in fall. Right now, I'm going to talk to you about all the events and projects we do with new students so they can feel more welcome here at Lane. Can you go to the next slide, please? So in the group conversation that she talked about last, we had coffee talks that we have 2 times a month that are really important for our international students to interact with our resident students so they can improve their English. We also have ESL activities for students that are learning English. We have the Chinese New Year celebration for the Asian students that come to Lane, and a new event, the Ramadan, that we celebrate for the UAE students that this year we had a lot of them. So those are the events that we were organizing with the new students this year. Can you go to the next slide, please? For the academic success, We really are working hard for students to get good grades. We know it's hard for international students to come to any country where the language is unknown and you don't have many friends, so academic success can become really hard. So we have a lot of events that help them with that. We have mandatory check-ins for all the mentees, so we know how are they doing in all weeks. We have weekly study groups where we can gather together and study, which is really helpful for all the students. We have academic integrity activities, and we have transfer days for students that have already been here for a couple of years but want to transfer. We make that process a lot more easier for them, and we know it's pretty stressful, so they really appreciate that. And we also have study break, which is also one of the resources I used when I was a new student here. Can you go next slide, please? We also have social engagement activities, which are, of course, my favorite activities when I was moving here. I was 17 years old when I moved here, and I didn't have much friends because I was one of the few students that was only speaking Spanish. And my English wasn't very good at that time. So all these activities helped me a lot to make more friends and interact with a lot of more people and a lot of new cultures, which also enriched my life a lot. We had gaming nights and board games nights. Movie nights are also really fun in the nights. We have beautiful basketball games for all the students that are interested in sports, mini golf, bowling, trivia night. It was a really fun activity. Chicken wing hot sauce competition, that was actually a student requirement, student requisite, sorry.
I was about to say requirement.
Everyone needs to go there, yeah, for sure. It was a requisite. Some student came to us and say, hey, can you do this event? It will be really fun. And of course we did.
That's right.
They said it was less spicy than expected, so next time we will fix that.
Oh.
We also have baseball games for all the Japanese students that love baseball. Can you go next, please? We also have mental health and wellness projects and events. We know it's really stressful to be here, especially when you don't know the language. So we have a lot of meditation sessions. We have hiking and biking projects and events that help students to move outside from the room and interact with people, interact with nature. Eugene is such a beautiful place, and it'll be just a waste to just be in your room, right? So we do hiking activities in Spencer Bottle, Skinner's Bottle, and Mount Piscan. We do river bike rides around Eugene. Those are changing over the time, so we selected the travel places and we go there. It's really fun. We also have send-in trips and weekly basketball on Friday in the Washington Park, which are really fun. Can you go next? Finally, we have some cultural trips for 2023 and 2024. These were really important to me because actually when I'm coming here, I don't know much about other cultures, right? So it can be weird to interact with other people, right? But the peer mentors were really helpful about it. And we had a lot of events that merged us together. Right now, I have a lot of friends that come from different countries. I'm actually really grateful for that. We have pumpkin patch visits. We go to Silver Falls, and we do all the other stuff involving Japanese garden at Portland. You will think that, hey, I come to Eugene to study and I'm just going to stay at Eugene. I don't want to go anywhere else. I'm too scared for that. But we encourage students to go outside the city. We go Portland, or we can go to the coastline so they can explore a little more about the country. And Multnomah Falls and the Heceta Head Lighthouse and Florence, that's in the coastline. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to pass it to Will.
Thank you so much, Luis. As you probably hear, there's a lot of activities that we are doing through our student peer mentors, through the department, but also in collaboration with many departments on campus to make sure that our students are having the best experience possible here at Lane. And that enriches our opportunities to do recruitment, to continue to retain our students and continue to see the great reputation that Lane is creating overseas as well. I want to kind of get us to our conversation in regards to some of the program updates that we've had since I've arrived here. I had an opportunity about a year and a half ago to present before you. And one of the things I said to you was that I was very excited about the unique distinctives that Lane has with housing, with the programs, with the innovation in regards to some of our degrees and things that are happening at Lane that are fantastic about us as an institution. And I think that as we continue to hear some of the work that the team is doing, you'll continue to see peaks at some of those unique initiatives and things that Lane is doing. So if we go to the next slide, I want to kind of highlight a couple of things that we typically do for our students that is unique, that involves a lot of the work around the team that we currently have in the international programs. So we put a lot of effort in onboarding our students. As Luis said earlier, many of our students come to us without sometimes even ever traveling outside of the US. I know that was my experience when I was an international student. Many of our students are traveling for the first time here. They're perhaps used to travel, but they don't know the area. They don't know how to get connected. And so we put a lot of effort here at Lane on our onboarding of our international students. They are getting a Titan Core orientation when they arrive. Before that, they're being picked up at the airport by our staff. There's a lot of work that we do towards making sure that students are connecting from the moment they leave the airport to the campus community, to those that are ready to receive them, our peer mentors who are already connecting with those students before they even get on the plane. And so we're working very heavily to make sure that students are feeling secured in their transition from their country to getting here. We prepare arrival baskets for them so that when they get here, we pick them up at the airport, we take them to Titan Court. They have in their room a welcome basket from us that lets them know we are excited they're here. It has some essential items for them for their room that helps them at least get started in the process of getting settled. Their rooms already have sheets and bed linens for them to just be able to rest if they need to. And little things like that, you would be surprised of how big of a mark it makes on the students because they're worried about all of this. And they get here, they find a place that's ready for them, that's open doors, ready to receive them, and it's excited about them being here with the peer mentors, with our staff, and with the facilities that we have to offer to them. We have also offered for them through the peer mentors opportunities for them to connect to local banking, to cell phones, to getting their transition into all of the services and things that we sometimes perhaps take for granted. We're annoyed about, having to go and choose our service provider. They don't even know where to go to get that. And we have connections for them through our peer mentorship program to allow them to get connected to some of those services that are basic to us. Then during the first week, we do a lot of meals as well through the program and through activities and orientations and training to help those students kind of get acclimated to our campus, to our community, to the resources that we have available to them around us. As was mentioned before, one of the changes we made since I arrived here was working on making sure that our peer mentors weren't just living anywhere, but they were also residential peer mentors intentionally to help not only give back to our campus community, but also to make sure that those students that were arriving at Lane were having a connection that was impactful. They were having people here on campus that were helping them transition and that were there with them, living in the experience and getting them some additional support and mentorship. And so that mentorship was happening now on their own residence hall as well. So they were there with the students. They're able to see what's going on. They're able to connect with the students on a more personal level and also be able to provide us feedback so that we can, as staff, be able to respond much quicker to students' needs through the program as well. Then, of course, came the issue of, well, we got to also make sure that we're compensating our students for the work that they're doing. And so we had an opportunity to increase and honor while asking the students to move to Titan Court and be at Titan Court for the year with us. Then we were able to provide some increase in their stipend to make sure that they were also compensated for this important and hugely valuable work that they're doing for us with connections to other students. These students are also our residential peer mentors are having biweekly meetings with our staff to make sure that we get to hear reports, how things are going for them, how things are going for the students that they're mentoring, and continuing to provide that feedback loop that allows us to then be able to work more proactively to help students connect to the resources that we have on campus. Sometimes it may be a mental health resource, or sometimes it may be just a welcoming hand that lets them know that, yeah, they're going to be okay. We're here to help them and continue to encourage them and support them along the way. If you go to the next slide, I kind of want to wrap up with are some exciting things that are going on in the international programs moving forward. One of the things that I thought was a really great distinctive of Lane was our global degrees that allow students to continue their education overseas, not just in any of our wonderful partner universities in the US, but also some really great enhanced programs that are overseas that students can continue, especially the Rennes Business School. It's a really, really wonderful partnership that Lane developed with a school that's really well renowned in Europe, all over Europe. And it's one of the top business schools in Europe. Our students can come to Lane, do 2 years, and then continue there for an extra year to complete their bachelor's degree. We have this not only impacts our students that are here, but it also helps us with our recruitment. We've had many Japanese students come to Lane and choose to come to Lane because they want to go through this pathway into their partnership program. So they're coming here intending intentionally to study 2 years with us to then go to Rennes Business School to complete their degree. So it's helping us not only on our retention and opportunity for students to continue on, but also on our recruitment efforts. We have wonderful partnership with University of Wales Trinity for theater, for the performing arts. And that partnership is now taking 3 of our students who are graduating, going in to continue their education there. So these partnerships are active, they're working, they're heavily exciting for our students and for the rest of our community. It's not just for our international students, also for our local community who's exploring some of these programs. I want to end with 2 new partnerships. You've heard about the partnership with the United Arab Emirates. This year, we're anticipating there won't be a new cohort coming in this fall, but there will be a new cohort most likely for the fall of 2025 that will be joining. But I want to let you know that those students who are with us from this year are continuing on, and the expectation is that they will continue their education at Lane until they complete their associate's degree and then transfer on. So they're now in the process of completing their language learning. So some of them are progressing very efficiently. Some of them are still kind of taking a little bit of extra time to continue their education, but they're very much with us and continuing to engage in studies here. We have 11 students. One of them had to go home, sadly, and will be returned. He's so excited about his experience. He's wanting to return next month. And so we're trying to work with him on all the logistics. He had to go home because of health issues, but is wanting to come back. So I want to let you know that all of that work that is happening isn't just simply our admissions and recruitment, but it's also a lot of our staff that's working on retention of these students, working on their international efforts and making sure that they're progressing in their academic plan, that we continue to look at all of the work that they're doing. So I have in my team, Tomomi Kurosaki, who's one of the project specialists that works very heavily with our students on their academic plans and their immigration advising, as well as Tea, who joined us this year. She's one of our new staff that you help support our program with adding. Dante, who works in partnership with the athletic department. We have Colby, who had been with us for about 30 years, who retired this year, sadly. So it's been a sad experience for us to see her go, but very excited to celebrate all the efforts and legacy that her family and many others in her family left at Lane and in the international programs. And then we have Desiree Woodruff, who is also one of those new positions you helped us support, that works a lot with our peer mentors and continuing to support the retention efforts that we do. And then the one thing I promised that I would mention to you at this time is an exciting new partnership that we just signed last week with Student International Sports. It's one of our partner agencies that we work with, but we are exploring a new venture with them in the international programs. They're going to be partnering with us to develop an athletic club / sports academy, if you will, where they're going to be bringing to us students who are not quite at the varsity level to play for both soccer and basketball, and or their language is not quite up to par in order to start playing at a varsity level at any university. So we've partnered with them. They typically do a showcase of about 250 students where they bring coaches and admissions personnel to kind of have these students play in front of them and decide if they want to be drafted into that university. So Lane participated last year in this event, and we were able to see some students and actually brought 2 students with us that were at varsity level to play with us here at Lane. But we noticed, and they noticed, that many of those students don't get drafted because either they don't have the language or they don't have quite the level of sportsmanship needed to play at any of the institutions at a varsity level. And so many of these students are looking for a place to go. And we've established a partnership where now these students have a place to go at Lane. So they're going to be providing the students with an opportunity to play at a club level, not at a varsity level, and also get their education at the same time. And so they're anticipating that for this fall, they may place with us anywhere between 20 to 30 new students who are not accounted in those 223 applications, who are not accounted into in our admit numbers yet. And so these students have a potential of coming here from many of the different countries in Europe, and some of them have dual citizenships with countries in Africa, sometimes even in the Caribbean. So continuing to diversify our portfolio of students coming to Lane. So we're very excited about this partnership. There's a huge demand for this kind of work. Actually, funny enough, before we signed this contract, there was another company that was reaching out to us looking to do something similar, but we chose to go with a trusted partner of ours, and we're excited about this event, this showcase coming up here in July, and the students that may be coming this fall yet from this cohort. So we're in partnership with our athletic department, with our ESOL department to make sure that this is a viable experience, because of course, as you can imagine, we have to work on schedules and making sure that everything fits and that they have the access to the facilities needed in order to make this a viable success. So we're very excited about this. We're in the process of now recruiting those students and continuing to work through adding that group of students to Lane in that club coming this fall. So with that, we want to thank you for the time that you've given us. And I don't know if there's any questions that you have for us.
We're over the amount of time, but I want to make sure we have some time for any questions. Any questions?
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And the compliment I just want to say is that, we have, traditional, non-traditional students, and having international students also in the mix in these classrooms, I think is really critical to really creating a well-rounded education for all students, including our international students. I'm really glad to hear all this, and look forward to learning more about the program. Denise.
Thank you. Oops. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Well, I want to thank everyone for their presentation. Those of you who are international and bilingual or multilingual, great job on your English. Being a former ESL faculty, I can tell you you're doing a really good job. And also, I'd like to appreciate that in our presentations of student government and how active they are, and new energy that the students are showing post-COVID and everything like that. And congratulate the participation of many international students in student government. I think that that's really a good sign of feeling connected and involved. Obviously, if they weren't getting the support and the welcome that your program is offering, we wouldn't see so many students in student government. So that has an effect also. So thank you very much for everything you're doing.
Appreciate you all. So much. Thank you once again. Next, we have the College Now and the LCC partnerships. Dr. Bulger.
Yes, this topic is not officially a program spotlight, but it should be probably. But there have been some questions from the board about what's happening with our high school partnerships. And so we want to have Dr. Tinkham and almost Dr. Chin come up and talk about College Now and the LCC partnerships.
Well, thank you, Board of Education and Dr. Bulger. So tonight, if we do have a slideshow. While we're waiting for that, we can go to the next slide. So we're going to begin the conversation tonight. I want to just give you a little bit of an overview of what is early college, what is dual enrollment, both as an operational activity, but also what is it really kind of at a policy level. And this is work that I've been deeply engaged with throughout my career. So when we talk about early college and dual enrollment, often these get interchanged. Essentially, we are talking about any arrangement where there is an enrollment of a high school student in college, they receive college level credit, but they're still enrolled in high school. And the gold standard is that the credit is counted in both ways. That doesn't always happen. These terms are used interchangeably, but typically early college implies something much more intentional than just enrolling in classes, dual enrollment. And this typically would involve incorporating student success components in that early college experience, and also striving for a certain number of college credits. Typically, what we have recognized in the research is that when students still enrolled in high school get about 12 credits, we start seeing a change in behavior and college aspirations tend to be inspired. Why is it important? It's associated with improved college and high school success. Now, the argument can be made that someone who is prepared for college early is obviously going to do well. We know that. So what we do is we control variables. And what we find is that when early college or dual enrollment is offered to students who are underrepresented, when it's barrier-free, they tend to perform better than their peers who are not given that opportunity when they decide to then enroll in college. They tend to enroll in college in greater numbers. Some research that I just read from Jobs from the Future, it's a 20 percentage point increase. And that goes up when we start looking at race and ethnicity. And these students tend to stay in. So it's a very good retention tool. So I really love early college and dual enrollment. As a vice president of academic affairs, it's something that I want to do more of. Also, it has the unintended consequence of improving relationships between K through 12 and college, because many of us haven't worked in both sectors. What we understand about either high school or K through 12 is based on our own experience. We get dated very quickly. And so often what happens is the sectors tend to blame one another. We don't have a Ministry of Education in the United States. We don't do that model. We have two separate institutions, and we don't know how to communicate. These are ways in which that glue can then be fostered. And, for example, the word retention, we love that word in higher ed. If you go to a high school and you start saying, we want to improve our retention, they're panicking because they don't want to increase their retention rate. They want to decrease it. So things like that. So what do we do here at LCC? So we have a program called High School Connections with Justin overseas. And we have two programs. We have College Now. Many of you are very much aware of that program. It's a dual credit program where students are taking courses at their high school from high school faculty who are deemed to be qualified at the college level. And that credit is transcripted. So it's a transcripted program or a dual credit program, and we do lots of it. Then we have what we are doing in dual enrollment, and we've got two pathways here at Lane. One is through RTech. It is a college success course. And the other one is very much ad hoc. These are individual arrangements where students are pretty much voting with their feet and they're coming to us. And Justin is going to take it from here and he's going to dive in.
President Bolger, Board of Education, thank you for having us here. Can we slide to the next slide here? So here's a snapshot of our College Now program as it was in 22-23. So we have 115 different courses offered through College Now. So you'll see some funky letters here behind Math 111, 111Z. So one of the things that Lane was a part of was the shift towards common course numbering, where what we're seeing is so many students who take dual credit lose those credits because colleges do not accept what's articulated. What the community colleges did with Lane at the leadership in so many ways is add this Z behind those numbers where we are articulating across the board with those 17 community colleges, working with the four-year universities to ensure a faster transfer rate that way. Our top 5 courses, Math 111Z, Math 112Z, Writing 121Z, Ethnic Studies 101Z, Spanish 103, and Human Health Professions 150. Currently, we're about 162 teachers who are offering College Now at 31 schools. 24 of our schools in Lane County are offering courses. And the thing that I'm most happy about, not most happy about, but also very happy about is there's our 7 out of district partners. So we get as far north as Milwaukee, Oregon with Sabin Schellenberg Institute. That is a CTE alternative high school. And then back to my old stomping grounds in Hermiston, Oregon, where we do construction with Hermiston High School. We are currently serving about 5,378 students. And we have awarded over 25,000 credits with that giant chunk of money that's being saved in tuition. One thing that I did not put on this slide, out of the out of the 22 institutions that are offering dual credit, Lane Community College, and I'm very proud to say this, is the #1 provider of college dual credit in the state of Oregon, which is a testament to our faculty here at Lane, our faculty that we partner with across the state, and the work of my team. And so those are things that I'm very proud of.
Yeah, I was just wondering, how does tuition work for students that are enrolled in high school and getting college credit?
That's a really good question. So right now in our College Now courses, we are not charging tuition. We get a 3-year average of FTE through our RTech. That is RTech 101. That is a tuition-free course where students are taking it for 1 college credit. And so with our RTech 101, we've moved from 1 offering to 4 offerings. So our 1 offering has been primarily in person. This year, we've moved that to where we're doing a couple site collaboration. So right now we're in Crow High School, where I think we have about 12 students. And we've also partnered in the last couple years with the Multicultural Center, working with Jim Garcia, with Mecha. And we've extended our pilot over the last 3 years, well, not 3 years, 3 terms where we've partnered with Churchill High School, Willamette High School, and North Eugene High School. So we served about 30 students in that pilot program, where we're really focusing on career and college readiness through that lens of CTE, also building in that affinity group development. So these students that are coming through this program with Mr. Garcia are getting that affinity development where they're seeing people that look like them, hearing stories that are in the languages and the voices that they speak at home. And coming up here in the next couple of weeks, we'll have that graduation ceremony where I'm not going to cry in front of y'all here. Too grown up to do that here, I guess. It's probably my favorite part of my LCC year here, is engaging those parents where they're taking that half day off of work to celebrate the work of their students. Thank you for that question, Mike.
All right. Oh, Mike.
Oh, next slide here. Thank you for that. I got excited here. Here's a couple pieces here of data. So looking at our RTech Regional Technical Early College 101, that's that guided college and career success course. 2023, 97 students enrolled. We've made a little bit of a jump here in 2024 with 115 students. So this is a captive audience where our students who are high school students are paying for their own way to come into Lane Community College to take classes instructed by our faculty members. So this is a commitment by their parents to put them in classes here. This is a number that I really want to work on here. We don't really have a good sense about these students who are individually enrolling at Lane Community College. So in 2023, 640 students. In 2024, 803 students. Something that my gut tells me is that this is tied to an initiative that the board helped us to pass here, where we are able to offer all students in the region who are identifying as a graduate of this upcoming class of 2024, all the way back to the class of 2020. Those seniors are eligible for one tuition-free course. And so this program has helped close that opportunity gap for so many students in our region.
Quick question in regards to that. So to take that course, though, they have to go through the admission, they have to create an account with us. They have to pretty much go through any sort of admission process and so forth. So it essentially creates that kind of like, it's systematic, essentially. It systematically gets them into our systems.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. All right, good to know.
Any other questions?
Mike, did you have another question?
Justin answered it.
One more slide.
One more slide.
So moving forward, this is an area that we want to develop and to become more intentional with. And so this fall, we are in the process of planning what I'm calling a P20 Education Summit. We believe that this will be in October. We will be having our first planning session with our P16 partners here in a few weeks in June. And, our preliminary goal for that day, for that summit, is really to just develop more intentional relationships and to identify our shared commitment to our students. So that's very much in early planning stages. Did you want to add anything else?
All right. Any questions? Zach?
Thanks. Who was invited to that summit? Who all?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. But we have, I could get that information for you. President Bulger, does that come to the top of your head right now?
Yes, we're working with the Lane Education Service District, with Lane ESD, and with the superintendents there. So as more plans, as we are planning that, and as more plans come to fruition, then we will certainly share those with the board. But we're excited about it. They're excited about it as well. We initiated that idea of having an education summit, and we're looking forward to what comes out of it.
Yeah, and we have four, I believe there are 4 superintendents, and then there's a representatives then from LCC. I just can't recall the names off the top of my head.
Did you have a follow-up, Zach?
Yeah, I've got 2 more questions, I think. So thanks for that. I'm glad that you're working on this. I think that expanding early high school or, early college education is both valuable for the students of the area, as well as, I think it can actually help our bottom line as well. Looking at student headcount and demographics data, it looks like we maxed out around 5,300 students back in 2016, and then that dropped to under 2,500, or more than a 50% drop during COVID. It looks like we've largely rebounded from that. Is that correct? That we're back above 5,000 headcount again?
Yes.
That's fabulous.
Yes, he could.
Great. So just, very supportive of efforts to expand that program in the future. I don't know if that includes some type of revenue sharing or what, but very, very hopeful we can figure out how to continue to be leaders in that space. With regards to the one tuition-free class, is there much thought on what can be done to expand the number of free college classes that high school students are allowed to take? It seems like we have capacity, especially over the summertime, to potentially offer more than one free class to those high school students. So hoping that can be explored and pursued hopefully in the near future. Thank you.
Zach, let me follow up with you on that one. So our tuition-free courses are offered to those students, and we are really targeting spring term and summer term for those students, where for a lot of our soon-to-be seniors, spring term is really a lighter semester in many ways. And then for many of our students who are taking that tuition-free course is over the summer, where a lot of those students who have been taking those classes have been using that as a bridge course, where in so many of our programs, unfortunately, we're not able to finish an associate's degree, but we do have a cadre of certificates, less than 1 year certificates, that our students are completing. So I'm thinking about a partnership that we have with Siuslaw High School, where we have been investing back into our basic healthcare certification, where those students from Siuslaw are getting very, very close to completing that certificate, and they're using that tuition-free course to get onto campus. And so one of the reasons why we're looking at that spring and summer is that we want to get those students onto campus. That is an integral part of closing that gap for our students. And so, Zach, one question that, or one piece of data that I'll share with you and the board here, when we look at our dual credit programs, we're getting about 23% of our students who enroll into dual credit coming to Lane as a part-time or full-time student after graduation.
Steve and then Mike.
That was actually my question, so I'm good. Thanks.
All right, Mike.
In a state where high school graduation rates aren't great, I assume that this program incentivizes students to finish high school so that they can go on. Good work.
Excellent. Zach, did you have another question? I saw your hand up.
I'm not entirely sure I understood the response. So I think what I'm hearing is that many of the students that are taking that one class are actually using that class to finish their high school or some other program or certificate.
They're using that tuition-free course to finish out certifications to get closer to like a 1-year certificate. Many of those students are using that course to get a little bit closer to completing a 2-year AAS CTE program that way.
Right. Are there significant arguments against offering a second or a third or unlimited number of free courses to high school students?
We've not explored that yet, Zach.
Okay, I'm hoping that will be part of the future discussion. Thank you.
And I have the names of the superintendents, if you would, that's okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha. First, go ahead, Steve. Oh yeah, just mainly I wanted to say that I went through dual enrollment in high school, and it was one of the best decisions I could have ever made in my higher education career and so forth. So I definitely support this program. One of the things I've been kind of focusing a lot in my head is in regards to direct admission agreements with our high schools and stuff like that. And obviously with the free course, it obviously creates that, account, and then there's that kind of system for them to go through. But would we be able to expand our capacity and remove barriers to getting into college by doing more of a direct admissions model as opposed to the current models? And just wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, as you understand, we are already open admissions as a community college. And I do know that some institutions are beginning these discussions with their high schools, and it's definitely something that we could discuss with our partners.
Gotcha. And just to be clear, so essentially if they graduate from, let's say the 4J school district, or heck, any Lane County school district, they essentially we create an account for them, and then it just like removes that barrier of even just having to show up here, create your account, or go online, create your account, and so forth. I see that as a great way to remove even further barriers for our high school graduates to come into our school system.
Could I add something? We had a meeting, Justin and my team, to look at doing this, and we were thinking about initially, I think Mount Hood Community College set up a program with Beaverton High School, I believe, or PCC actually.
Yeah, PCC.
And we were looking at that as well. And I think what we came to was trying to do it in a different way, and looking at possibly doing that with our College Now students, making it somewhat automatic. However, at the same time, I wanted to also give a heads up about some of the things our team does. We actually, say for instance, had a bus of students from Creswell High School come to campus yesterday morning. They were here at 8 o'clock. They were about an hour early. And so our team was scrambling. And so we had admissions, registration, advising, everything set up. And so we walked them through all those processes to get them registered for classes. So we large group, and we're doing that with multiple high schools now. So, and we're also, I think Rosemaria is at a high school this evening. Parents are bringing their children in to do that in the evening. And so we're very actively involved in that, but we're looking at working it out with College Now to do kind of what you're talking about, that direct admission, but with College Now. And that way we can get out to places like Florence, Siuslaw and other areas too, rather than just focus on Eugene Springfield.
10-4. I'm gonna go Denise and then Steve. Denise? Oh, you're muted.
Okay, thank you. On the same topic, I think it's very important to advertise and list and make known the certificate programs that can that match with financial aid. We know, especially in the rural areas, that a challenge is the cost of courses. Okay, so even if you're automatically, enrolled, the cost factor is a challenge. When we have stepping stones, whether they're the pathways or a certificate, that's highly motivating for students because it's an accomplishment and it's in, pretty short period of time, and it can lead as a stepping stone, obviously, to more and further, but it's a start, and it shows you that, that you can do it and you've got something to show for it. But I do think we have to know exactly which of those certificates allow for financial aid and really make that known.
Absolutely. We're slightly over time here, but Steve, did you have it?
A very quick comment. I just wanted to say that, I really appreciated the presentation. And I guess I just wanted to acknowledge that our very best programs, our Pride Points, are almost always led by somebody who really cares and takes a lot of pride in their program. And that's really obvious with you, Justin. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Wonderful presentation. Really appreciate it. Next, we're going to cover the Paraprofessional Education Assistant Certificate.
Yes, Dr. Tinkham will introduce this topic as well. We're going to keep the conversation going about our relationships with K-12.
Absolutely. So I would like to invite Dean Phil Martinez to the podium, as well as faculty member in education, Nadia Raza. The Paraprofessional Education Assistant Certificate that you have in front of you is a culmination of a collaborative work with faculty, with the department, myself, and also our local school districts. It is a 4-course, 12-credit minimum certificate for non-licensed educators who plan to work with youth or adults in various settings in and outside the classroom. It's a flexible certificate and provides foundational knowledge and skills, and it is designed as a stackable credential, one of these certificates that board member Diamond is very interested in. So I'm going to allow both Phil and Nadia to provide the presentation. They know this work very deeply, and they're both very passionate about expanding educational opportunities for our teachers and educators.
Thank you, Vice President Tinkham. Thank you, Chair Volnaghi, President Bulger, members of the board for having us. Vice President Tinkham outlined most of what I was going to say, but let me reiterate. This has been a very collaborative and long-term process led by Vice President Tinkham and Associate Vice President Fry, myself, and of course, our curriculum expert and education coordinator, Dr. Nadia Raza. We worked about this most of the year. We expected to present this to you months ago, but because of disruption that you may be aware of in the 4J school district, things were complicated at different points in time. So we're really proud to have brought it to you now. Took a lot of hard work. And we collaborated very carefully, listened very hard with the 4J school district. And they introduced a couple of new ideas that we incorporated. I'm sure Dr. Raza will address those issues, but I'll call one of them out, which is a reading program. that is a program for teaching reading at the educational assistant paraprofessional level, rather than it being at an advanced taught by a reading specialist with a master's degree. So there was some innovation involved in this. And then Lane ESD has, after we've created it, has fully supported it as well. So we've collaborated with both institutions. And with that, I'll let Nadia fill in the details.
Thank you so much. Board members and President Bulger, thank you for this opportunity. About 2 months ago, I had the opportunity to speak to you about our Career Technical Education Certificate Program that was built to meet the needs of industry and school districts. Last night, I attended 4J's CTE Showcase, where high school juniors and seniors, who were taking mostly dual credit courses, this is a beautiful segue, led participants in the most incredible demonstrations of their learning, from wilderness and outdoor training to graphic design, multimedia, illustration, construction and home building, education, where students were creating curriculum, publishing, self-publishing books, to culinary arts. These high school juniors and seniors were incredibly engaged and empowered in their education. They had the skills and support to exercise their agency, and it was the energy in the room was absolutely palpable. And that is really a testament to the department that soon Dr. Chin, Justin, has been cultivating with dual credit enrollment, because many of those teachers are CTE teachers that are also providing credit for students here. And it was beautiful to see students as the makers of their own education. I think this is the model of innovation we're going to see develop throughout our county, Oregon, and definitely the country. When I spoke about the CTE certificate, I placed it in the context of Lane's ability to pivot and meet the needs of our community, the challenges and the changes. And as you know, when it comes to the landscape of education and K through 12 training, there is an ever-changing and ongoing evolving need in our community. The crisis to train and recruit, retain future educators is quite significant, particularly coming out of COVID. In the past few years, I have learned that leadership in education is not about having the right answer, but about asking the right questions and listening really well, as Dean Martinez had mentioned. This is the second year, my second full-time year in this position as education program coordinator and full-time education faculty member. My first year in the position, I interviewed every student to find out what their pathway was, who they were, why they were in the education program, how we could best serve them. And with that in mind, I moved into the second year to create curriculum and develop the program, particularly with having some case study students in mind. I couldn't create a program for students if I didn't know who they were, what their barriers were, and what they wanted to do here at Lane. And that's one of the reasons I'm really excited that this certificate has the name Community Educator, because many students were saying, I want to be a coach. I want to be an after-school aide. I want to teach in my church. I want to work at the YMCA. And so to provide an outlet that can also train those future leaders in educational spaces that may not be the classroom, I think is a beautiful draw and makes this certificate program unique. So in the spirit of listening and asking questions of my students and now working with collaborative partners in 4J and Lane ESD, I'm here today to share our work to amend our Education Assistant Certificate into a micro-credential or a mini-credential. And so the movement to micro-credentials is one across the nation, from OSU to SUNY. There are micro-credentials being offered that are designed to promote in-demand skills that have immediate value. So they meet current emerging market needs, and they ask us to be more intentional with our alignment and our partnership to industry and to community. I think the best way to describe a micro-credential is an on-ramp. So it provides a new on-ramp into skilled occupations and also long-term college. So what's unique about our certificate program, this micro-credential, is that it meets the needs of numerous demographics. And this is where I feel like it's pretty innovative, and I'm very excited about the input of 4J to help us create a certificate that works for individuals who are education assistants. They're already in the classroom. They are sometimes teachers under provisional license, and they want to develop more skills and training to work towards a credential. We have a Grow Your Own initiative throughout the county to recruit ethnically and linguistically diverse future teachers that will mirror the changing demographics in our community, and this certificate serves them. This supports high school students in CTE pathways. It supports our transfer students, and it also supports first-gen non-traditional students. Every term, I have a small group of students who are immigrants to the United States. Some are English language learners, and they are so enthusiastic about being bilingual educators. And this certificate supports them. What this certificate does is it reduces barriers for students by creating a very sizable offering, 12 credits that they can complete. They can actually achieve 3 of those credits, maybe soon, to be 6 in high school through dual enrollment. So we can pitch this to high school students. 2 weeks ago, I was at an articulation meeting for high school instructors for a Teaching Our Education 100 dual credit course. And 3 high school instructors said to me, I always have students that want to take this class again. They say, can I take this class again? It's like, well, no, you can't repeat a high school class, but they're hungry and they want more. What they can do is they can do early college. We can create and recruit there from those students that want to continue, and we can build our offerings and education in high school programs as well. So this certificate will be a benefit to them. And then I think that there's an additional benefit that's even a bit more abstract. And that is that this certificate and the CTE certificate, it signals to districts and the state that we are able to work really well with our partners. We're able to pivot, and we're able to grow this program to meet the evolving demands around us. There are growing conversations in the Oregon Department of Education, the Teachers Standards and Practices Commission, that we need to rehaul the way that we offer teaching credentials. Having people do the traditional track, getting a bachelor's degree, getting a master's degree, then figuring out if they want to teach, and oftentimes not staying in the field. That's a broken system and it doesn't work. And in those conversations, there's an interest to look more towards community college, to be involved in that process, that we will become more of the on-ramp for creating and overseeing that process of supporting future teachers in that pipeline. And I would like Lane to be positioned at the forefront to participate in those conversations, be ready to engage in those pilot studies and create that on-ramp. In the last 6 months, I've created 2 certificate programs and 2 new courses that have never been taught at Lane and are the first of their kind here in Oregon. One of the courses is a course on reading strategies, and this came from a request by 4J. We were really, as asked, it was a fascinating conversation. And as Phil mentioned, we were listening. We were absolutely saying, what can we do to support your needs? In Oregon in 2019, before the pandemic, 50% of 3rd graders were not proficient in reading. The gap only grows. If you're not proficient at 3rd grade, you only fall behind more, and high school students who are not proficient in reading are more likely to get pushed out of high school and then more involved in our criminal legal system. And so the intervention point is 3rd grade, and what 4J asked for is a course on reading strategies. That course doesn't exist in the state of Oregon. PCC has a reading course, but it's not specifically tailored to strategies on how to support instructors in the classroom. I did some outside research, and most often these courses do not get offered to future teachers until graduate level. But what we have is education assistants in the classroom right now that could be helping and supporting those students with their reading acquisition. So this course will do that. The second course that I've created that I'm very excited about is a course on, it was my sort of answer to classroom management. Of course, that's the #1 issue that people have questions about. Students are saying, behavioral issues in the classroom. The course is called Classroom Community Conflict Resolution. It provides restorative and transformative justice tools, emotional intelligence, trauma-informed teaching, and different strategies to think about how educators can have the tools to respond to conflict without pushing students out or engaging in punitive processes that often don't really resolve the underlying issue. So that course will be offered. I'll be teaching that next year. I think the last thing I want to say is that this could not be possible without the tremendous support of my dean, who was much more of a co-collaborator and mentor and absolutely willing to get in the weeds, made so much time available for this tremendous amount of growth to happen in a short amount of time. So I want to thank Bill Martinez for that, and also to Jennifer Fry and Dr. Tinkham, who's brought so much enthusiasm to growing the education program. I'm new to being a program coordinator, and I just want to share that this is what happens when program coordinators are given the support to grow and innovate our programs. So thank you. Happy to answer any questions about this certificate.
Lisa.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's all very exciting. I'm curious because, working with teacher candidates who are working on their licensure and degrees, we at Pacific University, we have many candidates who are able to do their first clinical experiences working as educational assistants or paraprofessionals. So most often the jobs that are available are in the special education classrooms. That is the most difficult position to fill for school districts. And I'm just curious if there's any special education or information about working with neurologically diverse children. The course you mentioned around behavioral management sounds really appropriate, but are there those other types of classes as
Absolutely.
well?
We do have a course on special education, and that course is taught by a faculty member who works at Lane ESD and is also in classroom.
I think it's Springfield.
In Springfield. Okay.
And he's a SPED instructor. It's I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, Tony Lyman is a part-time instructor at Springfield. He's a part-time instructor here, full-time instructor in Springfield with the district, I believe. And he's a SPED specialist. And that course is part of this certificate. Let me take the opportunity to squeeze in a little bit additional information so you know why we focused on EAs. During COVID, there was a large loss of seasoned, experienced educators close to retirement or perhaps beyond retirement age who just did not want to, could not make the transition because of COVID onto online and distance and left. Who replaced them was the largest influx of a diverse volunteers and EAs across the state that we've ever experienced. And so coming from the districts, the strategy was presented to us that rather than waiting for 5, 6 years to get a master's student all the way through and back into the classroom, why don't we just work with our EAs in order to diversify the teacher population and move them forward. So I started working on that about 2 years ago, about the time that Nadia came on board, and this restructuring of the education, the previous education assistant certificate came out of that request. So the whole thing has been responsive to the district needs at the classroom level, not at the top down, get the master's degree and then pick up your TA-ship, your internship experience while you're in grad school. We want it earlier, as Pacific does, and this is the way we've chosen to approach that.
Excellent. We got Denise and Mike. Denise?
Thank you very much. I mean, that was absolutely outstanding. I have taught in the teacher credentialing program. It's interesting too, because I was recently an invited member to the advisory committee in Florence. And there was absolutely conversation about micro-credentialing that can apply to Mapleton School District as well as the Florence one. And I think it's very important to keep in mind that we know, right, it's pretty much a universal community need to have childcare and a teaching assistant. I mean, this is universal, where people have the background and some real hands-on instruction, some real particulars, as the courses as this credential definitely is addressing. So it's really outstanding work and very needed. Thank you very much for this presentation.
Yes, thank you. Mike, then Kevin?
Yeah, I'd just like to commend you on being so nimble as to recognize a need and to respond to it so quickly. It's an important thing. And Good presentation.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation. It sounds great. And I can just imagine our colleagues at a university that will remain unnamed they're like, dang it, scooped again. Right?
I met one of them last night at the CTE workshop. He said, I hear you have a meeting. I'm available. And so, yeah.
Yeah, so fantastic. I also want to circle back and bring the board and the community back to the fact that 2 years ago, when Dr. Bolger first arrived, she distributed a book called The Great Upheaval by Levine and Van Pelt. And micro certificates were really a dominant theme in that book. And so to me, part of this result that you've commented on tonight, reported on tonight, is a result of Dr. Bolger's efforts, when she hit the ground running. So good job.
Steve?
I'm also in support. I just wanted to know if you can talk to us a little bit about, what employers out there know about this credential and the extent to which you or LCC or others out there in their field are educating them to the point that they're listing it as an MQ, for example, in a position description.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And I'm excited to move into the phase of now being able to promote this credential. So once it's approved, moving into the promotion phase, Lane ESD and 4J are eager to begin to work with the students that come out of this credential and also support their students in. I mean, the new conversation will be asking Lane ESD and 4J, how do you want to incentivize this certificate program to your current EAs? Are you going to pay for it? Are you going to pay them more? What's the incentive process to make this the dominant model across the districts for the people that are already hired? So that's a conversation that I've already started with Lane ESD, and then moving into different community organizations to be able to share with them, this is something we're offering. We want to promote this. We'll move into the next phase of the publication and just kind of promotion.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead, Lisa.
So what you're describing also fits really well with the apprenticeship models that are developing between BOLI, ODE, and TSPC. And a lot of people really see this as the future of developing our teacher workforce. And so I'm curious if you see the work that you're doing as being having the ability to respond to that developing workforce.
Absolutely. I mean, I have already imagined what the next stackable credential onto this one will be. And my hope is that it will provide that next kind of step where there'll be a practicum, there'll be an element of apprenticeship, there'll be some type of element where students are engaging in the work in the community, being able to have the feedback from the site, but also from myself or whoever else we can hire to build this program. Right now, the education program is me. There's one person. It's a full-time faculty member and program coordinator, and I'd like to grow that. And so, this ideational work has only happened again because of the phenomenal collaboration that I have from the administrators behind me who believe in me and believe in this work. And so I imagine what the next stackable piece will be. And the other piece that I'm also really grateful for is every month I am in part of conversation in a monthly meeting with education faculty and deans from across the state of Oregon. So community college education faculty and deans, we meet once a month to talk about what's happening in other areas in the state. We meet with TSPC, we meet with folks from BOLI, we've done the alignment work. And so we have this incredible energy to anticipate what's coming next. And so my hope is that we can be ready for that.
Great, thank you.
Mike?
Can I address the last two questions very quickly?
Yeah.
To touch on a question previously asked to Justin, the issue of incentivizing this is going to be complicated because of union contracts at the district level. And so my pre-planning on this is that some type of contribution from LCC towards those students, such as a free course, would help to cover that gap. Because as you know, union negotiations, bargaining is complex, takes a long time, and there are 17 districts, right? And so, and with separate contracts. So that may be something that is actually slowed down. I've had discussions with with district representatives in the region over the last several years on this issue. And then I'm sorry, Lisa, I'm sorry, what was your question? I wanted to address that as well.
It was about apprenticeship models.
Oh, yes, the apprenticeship models. I've been part of that discussion as well. That's also a very complex issue.
I'm aware of how
And as you know,
complex it is.
there's-
Yes.
There's like
We have an
17
apprenticeship
stakeholders that
model.
have to be
Yeah.
involved. And so the stackable credential
Mhm.
is our solution in the time period until that gets settled out as to whether, which direction TSPC and ODE and HEC are gonna, and BOLI, the four major players are gonna go. And
Well, you
so-
know, there's already 3 pilot programs statewide, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
All right, Mike.
Yeah, during my 45 years of career, I led organizations that rely heavily on student paraprofessionals, all of which were heavily trained, but generally got no course credit. They did get compensated, but I'm wondering about the potential for community colleges to rely more heavily on paraprofessionals to extend the effectiveness of professional staff. Four-year colleges have been doing it for years.
Question.
It is, that's a very interesting question.
Contract thing.
Yeah.
I think Phil mentioned the complexity of union negotiations.
Oh, my God.
Well, most of the four-year schools that have paraprofessionals are unionized. And in fact, some paraprofessionals are unionized as well. So for what it's worth.
Yeah.
It extends the usefulness and the effectiveness of the professional staff greatly.
Well, I have nothing but positive things to say about this program. I'll keep my comment just really short since we're out of time. But overall, I really education has workforce needs as well, and this is really critical in helping fill that. Thank you so much for your time. Great presentation. All right. I'm going to try to make up some time with this next topic, which is the board self-assessment. In front of us is actually two different types of board assessment. The first one was written actually by Cindy Miles. She was at our first board retreat. Gosh, was that summer? Yeah. Anyway, so she developed a self-assessment tool. It has kind of a 1 through 4 model, and it focuses on establishing shared understanding, develop and comprehensive, effective enrollment systems, focusing on mostly on the board and presidential goals. And then we have a draft self-assessment, which also this is where the timeline is located as well. But below that is the board goals and then a board self-assessment tool draft. So those are kind of what we're trying to get at with this is which one of those self-assessment tools would we like to use in our board self-assessment? And just wanted to verify the timeline for that board self-assessment tool. I see some of you are looking at the assessment tools now, and I just wanted to get some guidance from you, which self-assessment tool we would like to use. Kevin.
Yeah, I've taken a quick look at both documents, and my preference would lean towards the first one that Cindy Miles prepared, just because it seems more concise. It has a combination of a Likert scale and a place for comments. So I think that would suit the board's needs.
So, Lisa.
I'm assuming the goals and the things at the bottom, numbers 1 through 9 would be updated. This is we're just looking at a sample here. Okay. Yeah, I prefer that first one as well.
Yep. Was right there with you as well. And just wanted to, I'm getting obviously some feelings for the first one.
That's fine.
Great, excellent. Timeline. Go to that second page there with the 15th, obviously, is when we're reviewing this. The June 5th, we approved the self-assessment tool as an action item. June 6th, you receive that, and then the deadline to submit is the 24th. Those are obviously the critical dates. Just wanted to verify that was a good timeline for us to go with.
Fine.
Yeah.
All right.
I think it's fine. My only question would be, there's going to be some compilation work done by staff, and if that can be accomplished during the July time period, great. If not, then we need to look at that again.
Absolutely. I think in the past when we've done board assessments, that timeline worked well with staff, but yeah, I'm kind of looking to staff for that.
Celia, could you weigh in on that? Celia would be doing.
I am staff, so.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. And then obviously the July 20th board meeting, our board retreat is when we would look at the results of that self-assessment and discuss it further. All right, great. I picked up 6 minutes for us in our agenda here, so we're good. Moving on to contractual authority. Dr. Bulger.
Sure. And Kara Plath will talk about contractual authority, and we're bringing this topic back. So that's why we've allotted 5 minutes to it. Kara?
Yes, the board has already approved 2 of the 3 policies that move the threshold up from 150 to 250,000. This is the 3rd one. We also have contract and procedures policy that will bring along with this, that will have some of the similar changes. So this is just the last piece that we need to bring forward to the board. And it will also require, as the other policies do, that we bring forward the 150 to $250,000 contracts, so you can review those too.
Okay, gotcha.
And so this is when in the work session, it would be on the June 5th agenda?
Yes,
for
this will be
action.
for board action. It will require it, both of those. So
Absolutely.
you will see those. So this was just to add the conversation. If you had any discussion questions that can provide information.
And is there any limitation of if we could just put it on the consent agenda? Or like, does it have to be like a board topic? We discuss it and we vote on it.
We can put it on the.
Fantastic. Cool. Just wanted to double check that. And yeah, that's the only thing I have. All right. Seeing no other discussion. Oh, really quick. I just wanted to ask the board, the paraprofessional and the education assistant certificate, would that be okay to put that on the consent agenda as well? I forgot to ask that in the last one. Okay, perfect. Cool. Excellent. Financial updates, Dr. Bulger.
Okay, Kara, we'll ask you to come back to the podium and give us a Q3 financial update. Thanks.
Sure. And this is a quick recap. Sorry, it's an odd angle for me. Giving you an idea of what the Q3, just very summarized because we went through some of the information earlier, revenue and expenditures, what that might look like. Again, still projected revenue targets are still on track. Sorry, you can go to the next page. I was just looking at my own information and skipping you all. Sorry. So the revenue budget, 95.4 billion. We're forecasting 92.8. Year to date, it's 88.9. So that burn rate is 93% year to date. We're still expecting more revenue to come in, which we still have a little more time. Total expenditures, budget, 87.3 million. We're forecasting 91.4. What that doesn't include is the contingency budget, which you'll see in June. We will bring a resolution forward. So remind you, there's 6.5 million that is sitting in revenue for shortfall, which we did achieve some of that revenue. So it's going to be requested to be spent, kind of already encumbered. So we'll bring that forward. In June, you'll see some of that information. Again, part-time, if you go to the next page, this might actually help a little more with the expenditure explanations. Burn rate's pretty on track. The one, as Jonathan's talked about in the past, is part-time faculty is pretty high because we have more enrollment. So we brought in more part-time faculty to fill in for class loads and needs for enrollment. OPE and benefits is a little low. That's because we don't make our first bond payment and it comes out of there up until June. So you'll see that that will level out by the end of the year. Revenue is pretty on track, and it's just really quick summation. But if you have any questions.
Any questions? Steve.
Not exactly about this stuff, but close enough. So Lisa brings this up occasionally, and I appreciate that because I don't feel like I fully understand this either. When in this past year, right, we had the revenue, I always get the name wrong, the
Revenue for short.
for shortfall, thank you, set aside, right, in case, right? For the most, we used a little, you told us recently, but for the most part, we didn't need it because enrollment projections, met and exceeded expectations, which is great. So, and I believe next year, right, you're recommending a much smaller, revenue for shortfall budget. We'll see where that actually lands. So that leaves in my mind, sort of a surplus, a big chunk of money that we didn't need this year after all. What happens to that exactly? Where does it go?
That's a good question. It's not necessarily a surplus. What it's done is we said, hey, we think we're going to have this revenue. We may or may not. So we have it in the revenue section, but in your expenditure part, we're also we're holding it. Like, we're not sure this is going to come to fruition. We think it might come with state support or some of those other sections, but we need to withhold what that expenditure budget is, the resource budget. And now we're saying we met that revenue shortfall. It's kind of an odd term that throws my brain off a little bit too.
I think Charlie asked this from the budget committee, now that I think about it, right? So it's not a pot of money. It's the right to reduce expenditures by, some commensurate amount if needed.
It's a withholding of expenditures in case you don't meet your revenue.
Okay, so then, right, so there's no pot of gold, I guess.
There is no pot of gold. If I found one, you would be the second to know. Yeah.
Yeah, there's not then, yeah.
So we didn't set aside a specific amount of money in a reserve. It was called a reserve for revenue shortfall. And the way that Sue Fahey explained it was that it was like a savings account, and that we set aside that money in case we didn't get certain revenue from the state, in case we didn't get the tax credits from the feds, and in case we didn't meet our enrollment goals. So it was a reserve. And so now we're saying it wasn't a reserve and it's something else.
No, I think we're saying the same thing. It's trying to say it in the same way. I understand how it's being explained, and I'm trying to make sure I explain it right. But when you anticipate having this revenue, we don't know that it's going to come true. So it's reserved on the side. If we didn't spend it and we got the revenue.
But we actually did budget reductions to create the reserve.
That's correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we
Yes, we did.
created a reserve that was to be held in case we didn't get these other revenues. So if we hadn't gotten these other revenues, you're saying we wouldn't have had this reserve set aside?
If we hadn't received the other revenues, we would release what was in the reserve for revenue shortfall.
So there is money in the reserve for revenue shortfall that we could have released.
The board did that this year. There was the $2.8 million, you might recall, and there was the $1 million that we received in additional state funding.
Steve?
I'll just admit that I still don't understand.
Okay, well-
So maybe instead of spending valuable board time now, I'll be happy to get educated offline, but I don't quite understand the mechanism and I want to understand it. So I'll follow up.
That sounds great. We'd be happy to talk to you more.
Zach, go ahead.
Can you just talk a little bit about the burn rates for the revenue that are coming in slightly below 100%? And is that normal, or is there any cause for concern with regards to our burn rate being less than 100 at this late time in the year?
Yeah, no, let me defer that one to Jonathan, because I know, he'll be able to answer this much better.
So no, because the way that we set up our budget is we kind of set it up higher than what we think we're going to get to give ourselves budget authority. It's kind of back to that whole budget versus what we forecast. So the fact that it's a little bit lower reflects things like grant expenditures not coming in that we expected it to. So we had an error in the way that we budgeted grants last year, which impacts the indirect revenue that we bring into the general fund to offset things like administrative recovery, facilities, and whatnot. The other part of that has to do with sale of goods sold. So if we're not generating that revenue, there's little pieces of it, and that burn rate is actually, that will probably tick up a little bit, but usually in higher ed, you don't see 100% in the way that they budget it because of the way that budget authority falls into place. Does that make sense? A little bit.
It's, sounds like you gave yourselves there was a little bit of wiggle room built in to basically. You expect a couple percent short each year is normal.
Right. And a lot of that has to do with also estimating property tax. There's some certain calculations that go into that. So if we fall a little bit short on property tax, that's kind of expected, because if we're not building new homes, we don't get that additional percentage point that's calculated into it. But yeah, I think the burn rate on revenue is kind of exactly where we expect it to be at this point in time.
Excellent. Any further questions? Oh, Mike.
Yeah, I think it might be helpful to do a lesson with the full board, not just Steve on that question. When we get.
I'll be
time.
the guinea pig, and when I say I understand it, then I'll ask him to explain.
What I really need is a big whiteboard. I love to whiteboard, and so maybe I can find a way to whiteboard it in an information request in some way. We can show the mechanics of it. It is kind of a peculiar mechanism, but savings count, not savings account, has more to do with the expenditures, not the revenue. I'll whiteboard it out virtually for everybody.
Thanks.
Yep.
Perfect. All right. Any more slides on this one or nope? Okay, perfect. All right. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, we will move on to closing items here. Future meeting dates. So obviously we have the budget committee meeting. We won't have a board meeting afterwards, so we won't be constrained to that 1 hour time period. So we'll look forward to some of the discussions there. Then we have our regular board meeting on June 5th. It's not on here, but commencement is on the 15th. So I wanted to just make sure that all board members are aware of that. And then board work session on the 18th and regular board meeting on the 3rd of July. Any questions about those future meeting dates? Nope.
So
Perfect.
the budget committee meeting is what?
22nd,
Okay.
May 22nd, sorry.
A week.
Yep, week from today, yeah.
And that'll be at 5:00.
Yeah, I believe that's what we scheduled it for.
Excuse me.
Oh, yes, Zach, yeah.
I would like to request, if possible, that we move the next budget meeting to either the 29th or the following week. Two of the Lane Budget Committee members, myself and Shaban, both have Eugene Budget Committee meeting at the same time next week, on the 22nd, and would be unable to attend after the first 20 minutes or so. And so if you want the two of us there, I'd very much appreciate it if we could find another evening. Thank you.
Understood. It's just that the budget committee is the one that I think would be the deciding factor in that. I'm not sure if we're able to change that. Go ahead.
Sue George might not be available on the 29th either.
Okay.
Neither
Got it.
will I.
Yeah,
We have a
exactly.
schedule.
Yeah. So, yeah. Lisa?
Is it possible to potentially move it later? Would that help with the situation, Zach? I heard you say that you would miss the beginning of the meeting.
I believe the Eugene Budget Committee meeting is scheduled from 5:30 to 7:30.
Oh, okay.
Got it.
I also believe that in order for us to meet our own timeline for approving the budget, we need to meet next week.
Yeah. Appreciate you bringing that up, though. All right, board member comments and questions. Denise, did you have your hand up?
Sorry, going to that earlier, does it help if meeting next week is an hour earlier?
You mean at 4?
Yeah.
I mean, that would work for my schedule. I don't know, but I thought that might screw things up for all the other people that have to do it after normal day jobs. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, is it worth asking? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
I'm actually trying to think, Brett, that's voted on by the board committee, right? Or the budget committee, right? So if we needed to change that schedule or add additional dates, it would have to be in the budget committee itself, right?
Well, we would need to connect with each one of those
Exactly. Yeah,
individuals.
precisely. Yeah.
To see if they were available, Kara.
And those meetings are also publicly posted, so we would have
Right.
to re-notice them.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Thanks for trying. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'll do our best to finish fast, I guess, but hopefully we can do everything. Thank you.
Do you have 2 computer screens? No, I'm just kidding. We could switch this one to Teams so you could be on Zoom on the other one. I'm just kidding. All right. Additional board member comments and questions. All right, seeing none, we're going to move to adjournment. We do have an executive session, but let's go ahead and take a 10-minute bio break, and then we'll go into executive
Actually have
session.
one comment.
Oh, yeah, Steve, comment.
Yeah, the presentation that we had at the head of the meeting about the memorial in Alton Baker Park. Right?
Yes.
There was broad agreement, right? You could see that from the board that we ought to participate in some way. But that's as far as the discussion went, right? It was sort of not clear to me what individuals on the board meant by engaging and participating. At the end, you said, okay, well, I really want to move forward with the diamond, whatever they call that, commitment or something like that. And that may be exactly where the board wants to go. But before we get there with a motion, I'm just hoping that the discussion between you and the president engages somehow the rest of the board so that when we have a motion before us next time, it's something that there's, broad agreement on, as opposed to something led by one person without consultation with the rest of us.
Totally. Well, Steve, three things. One, there was another board member that said all in. Meeting, and we had the screen with what the ask was, and so I took that as okay, they support that, and I heard from the vast majority of the board, obviously, that they supported it. That being said, do you want to support on the diamond level? Let me just ask that to the board right now.
I'm not prepared to have that discussion. Right
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay.
Because this is a work session, Chair Polnaghy, because this is a work session, I would just suggest that perhaps we do meet.
Exactly.
That we have a conversation. I can certainly interact with each of the board members based on that conversation to discuss this so that we will have a sense of the board's agreement coming into maybe the June 5th meeting, if that would work
All
for
right.
you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I think that the next step that was said was the president and I would have a discussion, and I said, go ahead.
Yeah, there may be other ways, whether the 25K is the appropriate level of our participation, but there may be, additional ways that LCC can participate and that would include students in a way that they could contribute or participate in some way. So yeah, I'd be interested in kind of fleshing out the possibilities.
100%.
But I'm totally supportive of something.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Zach.
Yeah, thanks for this discussion. Apologies, I had a work obligation. I got to see the presentation around the monument to the Lane County Board of Commissioners a few weeks ago. So I'm definitely supportive of doing something, and hopefully we can get to the full level. But I did also want to say, yeah, if there is a way that we can involve other community members, students, the foundation, potentially bring a speaker to the area or something to do some type of a joint fundraising. Let's try and think about ways we can engage outside of just a $25,000 check. Maybe there's a way we can build some community partnerships through this as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I really appreciated the ways we already participate with the Small Business Development Center and the variety of other different ways that we have those partnerships and so forth. I think it's really critical that we're a part of those partnerships. So, all right. Any further board comments and discussion? Seeing none, we'll adjourn. And like I said, there's the executive session. Let's do a bio break there for 10 minutes.